This video was made thanks to this awesome request. Thank you for the title suggestion, and happy watching.
Before we dive into the video, let's first get to know Meruem, the Chimera Ant King from Hunter x Hunter. Meruem is widely regarded as one of the most compelling and powerful antagonists in all of anime. Born as the ultimate biological pinnacle of the Chimera Ants, he initially possessed terrifying strength, unmatched intellect, and a ruthless belief in absolute survival of the fittest. However, what truly makes Meruem unforgettable isn't just his overwhelming power, but his profound philosophical evolution. Through his encounters with the human-blind Gungi player, Komugi, Meruem shifted from a merciless tyrant into a thoughtful leader who began to understand empathy, dignity, and the true value of life, making him a fascinating figure to reimagine in a brand new world like Tensura.
Welcome to FI's Recap channel, the place where we break down the most captivating stories hidden within the archives. We all know the official stories, but have you ever wondered, what if the hero took a different path? What if a simple misunderstanding changed everything we thought we knew? Today, we're diving deep into a world where the lines between reality and fiction blur, exploring a look that will keep you guessing until the very end. Before we start, if you love deep dives into alternate universes and epic character journeys, don't forget to subscribe for your weekly dose of the best fanfiction recaps on the internet. Now, let's get into the story.
Deep within the Jura Great Forest, an unusual disturbance spread through the trees. The wind had stopped, birds fled from the area, while weaker monsters abandoned their nests without understanding why. A dense mass of Magicules had gathered in a secluded clearing, causing the ground to tremble beneath it. Then, boom, a wave of energy erupted from the center. The trees bent outward as the dark mass disappeared, revealing a lone figure standing in the middle of the clearing. He had green skin, a muscular body, sharp crimson eyes, and a long tail extending behind him. His appearance was unmistakably that of a chimera ant. Meruem slowly opened his eyes. He remained silent as he examined his surroundings. The forest was unfamiliar. The air was different, and something strange was flowing through his body. He raised one hand and concentrated. A faint energy gathered around his fingers. This isn't Nen. He immediately recognized that the energy was completely different from the aura he had known in his previous life. A strange voice suddenly appeared inside his mind. Unknown energy detected. Classification: Magicules. Compatibility with current body: extremely high. Meruem narrowed his eyes. Magicules. The information seemed to enter his mind naturally. This world was filled with the energy, and monsters appeared to rely on it for their strength and evolution. Then his memories returned. The palace, the royal guards, Netero, his battle, the poison, and finally, Komugi. Meruem's expression became slightly softer. He remembered the girl who had changed the way he viewed the world. He remembered their games and the final moments they had spent together. But he did not remain lost in those memories. He looked around again. This was a different world. He had been given another body and another opportunity to live. Before he could investigate further, several heavy footsteps came from the forest. Thump, thump, thump. A group of large wolf-like monsters emerged from between the trees. Their bodies were covered in dark fur, and their sharp claws dug into the ground as they surrounded Meruem. The largest one stepped forward and released a threatening growl. Roar! It charged. Meruem did not move until the monster was directly in front of him. Then he raised one hand. Crack! His fingers closed around the creature's wrist. The monster's charge stopped instantly. Meruem stared at it. The difference in strength was overwhelming. With a single movement, he threw the beast aside. Boom! It crashed into a tree and fell to the ground. The other monsters froze. Meruem slowly turned toward them. He released a small amount of his aura. The entire group immediately trembled. None of them dared to attack. Meruem walked toward their leader and stopped a few steps away. Leave. The monster lowered its head. The others followed. Within seconds, the entire group disappeared into the forest. Meruem watched them leave before turning his attention toward the fallen beast. Something about its body caught his attention. When he touched it, energy began flowing into him. Magicules. His body absorbed the energy naturally. Then another notification appeared in his mind. Biological energy acquired. Magicule energy acquired. Synthesis potential detected. Meruem's eyes narrowed. His original ability had changed. In this world, his power seemed capable of interacting directly with Magicules and biological characteristics. He stood and looked deeper into the forest. There were countless creatures nearby. Some were weak, others possessed enormous amounts of energy. Meruem could sense them even from a considerable distance. A faint smile appeared on his face. This world was filled with possibilities. He began walking through the trees, memorizing the terrain as he moved. He had no army, no kingdom, no followers. Yet, far away, another powerful presence suddenly moved. Meruem stopped. His crimson eyes turned toward the distant forest. Someone had sensed his arrival. And judging by the pressure approaching from that direction, whatever was coming was considerably stronger than the monsters he had encountered. Meruem lowered his stance slightly. His tail moved behind him. For the first time since his reincarnation, he prepared himself for a genuine battle. The Chimera King had awakened in a new world. Meruem continued walking through the Jura Great Forest. The presence he had sensed earlier had disappeared, leaving him alone once again. He stopped beside a large tree and examined his body. The strange energy called Magicules was still flowing through him. Every time he focused on it, his body seemed to respond. Meruem raised his hand. A faint glow appeared around his palm. This energy can be controlled. He closed his fingers. The glow disappeared. Then he remembered the strange sensation he had experienced when touching the monster from before. His body had absorbed something from it. Not merely energy. Something else. Meruem concentrated on the sensation. A notification appeared inside his mind. Analysis complete. Unique skill formation confirmed. Skill name: Synthesis King. Meruem remained silent. He could feel the skill immediately. It was not simply an ability to consume. Synthesis King allowed him to analyze biological structures and absorb their useful properties. Magicules, physical traits, elemental resistance, and certain abilities could be incorporated into his own body. Meruem understood the potential instantly. So this world has converted my ability into a skill. He clenched his fist. The skill responded immediately. A nearby insect suddenly flew past him. Meruem's eyes followed it without difficulty. His senses had already become sharper than before. But he wanted to test the limits. He moved toward a rocky area where several small monsters were fighting over food. The creatures noticed him and immediately became hostile. One of them charged. Meruem stepped forward. Boom! His fist struck the monster's chest. The creature flew backward and crashed against the ground. The others attacked together. Meruem moved through them with precise movements. He avoided every claw and bite before striking their vital points. Within seconds, the fight was over. Meruem looked at the defeated monsters. He could simply leave them. But Synthesis King was urging him to test its function. He picked up one of the monsters. The moment he consumed its core energy, Magicules flowed into his body. Synthesis initiated. Physical resistance acquired. Minor earth resistance acquired. Magicule capacity increased. Meruem's eyes narrowed. The process was extremely efficient. There was almost no wasted energy. He looked at his hand. A faint layer of hardened material formed across his skin before disappearing again. Interesting. He could already imagine how powerful this ability could become. If consuming a weak monster produced such results, what would happen after consuming a powerful monster? A higher class monster. An ancient demon. A true dragon. Meruem's expression became serious. He understood that obtaining power was not enough. The stronger he became, the more attention he would attract. And this forest clearly contained beings far stronger than the creatures he had encountered. Suddenly, A loud roar came from somewhere ahead. Roar! The ground shook. Meruem turned his head. Several trees collapsed in the distance. A massive boar-like monster emerged from the forest, its body covered in thick armor and its tusks glowing with Magicules. It was considerably stronger than the previous monsters. The creature charged. Meruem stood still. At the final moment, he moved sideways. The monster passed him. Meruem struck its back with his palm. Boom! The creature crashed into the ground. It attempted to rise again. Meruem grabbed one of its tusks and lifted its entire body with one arm. The monster struggled. Meruem simply stared at it. Your strength is useful. He released his aura. The monster immediately stopped resisting. After absorbing its energy, the notification appeared again. Synthesis complete. Enhanced physical strength acquired. Reinforced body acquired. Increased Magicule capacity acquired. Meruem felt the changes immediately. His body had become stronger. Not dramatically, but enough for him to recognize the potential. He looked toward the enormous forest surrounding him. There were countless creatures here. Countless abilities. Countless possibilities for evolution. Yet Meruem had no intention of devouring everything he encountered. He remembered Komugi. He remembered what he had learned before his death. Strength alone did not determine the worth of a king. Meruem turned away from the defeated monster. There is no need to kill without reason. He continued walking. As he moved deeper into the forest, Synthesis King remained active within him. His body was slowly adapting to the Magicules of this world. Then he sensed another presence. This one was different, far stronger. Meruem stopped. His crimson eyes narrowed as he looked between the trees. Something was approaching. He lowered his body slightly. His tail moved behind him. A faint smile appeared on his face. Another test. The forest became silent, and Meruem waited. The forest became quiet. Meruem stood in the middle of the trees, watching the direction from which the strange presence had come. Then several monsters appeared. They were larger than the creatures he had encountered earlier, with thick bodies, sharp claws, and enough Magicules to make them considerably stronger. Their leader stepped forward. Roar! The monsters surrounded Meruem. He looked at each of them calmly. There were 7. Their movements were coordinated, but poorly organized. Meruem immediately understood their formation. You are hunting together. The monsters growled. One suddenly charged from the front while 2 others moved behind him. Meruem noticed the tactic instantly. He stepped forward. The first monster swung its claws. Meruem caught its arm. Crack! He twisted its wrist and threw it toward the ground. Boom! Before the others could react, Meruem moved behind them. One strike, then another. The monsters fell one after another. But Meruem deliberately avoided killing them. The final monster tried to escape. Meruem appeared in front of it. The creature stopped abruptly. You have lost. The monster lowered its head. Meruem stared at it for several seconds before releasing his aura. The creature trembled. Take the others and leave. The monsters quickly gathered their injured companions and disappeared into the forest. Meruem watched them go. He could have consumed them. Their Magicules would have strengthened him. Their abilities might have improved Synthesis King. But he saw no reason to do so. He had already learned enough. A king did not need to kill everything beneath him. Meruem continued walking until he reached a small clearing. Several weaker monsters were gathered there. They were fighting over food. One monster attacked another and knocked it to the ground. Meruem watched silently. The stronger creature was about to deliver the finishing blow. Stop. His voice was quiet. The monster froze. It slowly turned toward him. Meruem approached. Why are you fighting? The creature did not understand his words. Meruem pointed toward the food. Then toward the injured monster. There is enough. The monsters looked at the pile of food. There was more than enough for all of them. They had been fighting simply because they were accustomed to taking everything for themselves. Meruem understood. This was how weak monsters survived. They fought because nobody had given them another choice. He turned toward the forest. Follow me. The monsters hesitated. Meruem continued walking. After a few seconds, Several of them followed. Then more. By the time he reached the edge of the clearing, a small group of monsters had gathered behind him. Meruem stopped. He looked back. None of them dared to approach too closely. He understood what they wanted. Protection. Food. A place where they would not constantly need to fight for survival. Meruem looked at the group. If you follow me, you will obey my orders. The monsters lowered their heads. You will not attack each other without reason. More heads lowered, and you will protect those weaker than yourselves. The monsters remained silent. Then the largest one lowered itself completely to the ground. The others followed. Meruem's crimson eyes narrowed slightly. He had not asked them to worship him. But they had already chosen. He turned toward the deeper forest. Then come. The group followed. For the first time since his reincarnation, Meruem was no longer alone. He did not have a kingdom. He did not have soldiers. He did not even have a proper name for his territory. But he had followers, and Meruem intended to give them something that most monsters in the Jura Great Forest had never possessed. Order. As the group moved through the forest, Meruem suddenly stopped. A powerful presence had appeared in the distance. This time, it was much stronger than anything he had encountered before. The monsters behind him immediately became frightened. Meruem raised one hand. Stay here. He walked forward alone. His eyes focused on the trees ahead. Whatever was approaching was strong enough to make the entire forest react. Meruem's expression remained calm, but his body was ready. The first true test of his new life was approaching. The presence in the forest continued approaching. Meruem stood alone between the trees while the monsters behind him remained hidden. Branches moved. Then a large figure emerged from the darkness. It was a massive ape-like monster covered in dark fur. Several scars covered its body, and a dense amount of Magicules surrounded its muscles. The monster stared at Meruem. Roar! It charged. Meruem waited. The monster swung its fist. Meruem raised his arm. Boom! The impact shook the surrounding trees. Meruem slid backward several meters, leaving deep marks in the ground. His eyes narrowed. Strong. The monster attacked again. This time, Meruem moved. He slipped beneath the creature's arm and struck its ribs. Crack! The monster staggered. Meruem followed with another strike. Boom! The creature crashed through several trees. It immediately stood again. Meruem smiled slightly. Good. The monster roared and charged once more. Their battle continued through the forest. The creature relied on raw strength, while Meruem analyzed every movement. After several exchanges, Meruem understood its pattern. The monster always shifted its weight before attacking with its right arm. Meruem waited for the movement. Then he stepped inside its attack. His fist struck directly beneath its jaw. Boom! The monster was lifted from the ground. Before it could recover, Meruem caught its arm and slammed it into the ground. Crack! The monster stopped moving. Meruem stood over it. He could consume its Magicules. He could take its strength. But instead, he extended his hand. Submit. The monster opened its eyes. It looked at Meruem for several seconds. Then it lowered its head. Meruem released his grip. Good. He turned toward the forest. The monsters that had followed him earlier slowly emerged from hiding. They had witnessed everything. Their fear had disappeared. In its place was respect. Meruem looked at them. From today onward, this area belongs to us. The monsters remained silent. You will build shelters. He pointed toward the nearby clearing. Food will be gathered there. He pointed toward the river. Water will be collected from there. Then he looked toward the stronger monsters. Those capable of fighting will guard the territory. The monsters listened carefully. Meruem continued. Those who cannot fight will gather food, materials, and information. The creatures began moving. For the first time, the monsters had orders that were not simply based on killing or survival. Meruem watched them work. Some carried branches. Others gathered fruit. The stronger monsters cleared large stones from the ground. Within hours, the clearing had begun to change. Meruem walked through the developing settlement. He corrected their formations. He showed them where to place their shelters. He separated food storage from sleeping areas. He even established a simple patrol system around the perimeter. The monsters followed every instruction. Their movements became more organized. Meruem looked across the settlement. This is only the beginning. He needed more than a group of monsters. He needed a proper territory. And eventually, a kingdom. But before that could happen, he needed information. He wanted to know what existed beyond the forest. What races lived in this world? Which monsters ruled the surrounding territory? And most importantly, who was the strongest being in this world? As Meruem considered the possibilities, a shadow suddenly appeared above the trees. Several monsters looked upward. A large flying creature circled over the settlement. Meruem immediately recognized that it was observing them. Interesting. The creature suddenly descended. The monsters prepared to attack. Meruem raised his hand. Don't. Everyone stopped. The creature landed several meters away. It looked at Meruem. Meruem looked back. Neither moved. After several seconds, the creature turned and flew away. Meruem watched it disappear. Someone is watching us. One of the monsters growled nervously. Meruem remained calm. Let them watch. He turned toward the settlement. We have nothing to hide. Far away, the creature disappeared into the forest. It was carrying information. A new monster faction had appeared deep inside the Jura Great Forest. And its leader was not an ordinary monster. Meruem had established his first territory. He had gathered his first followers. And without realizing it, he had begun building the foundation of what would eventually become the Chimera Vanguard. Several days passed. The small settlement in the Jura Great Forest had changed considerably. What had once been an empty clearing was now filled with simple shelters, storage areas, and a wooden barrier surrounding the territory. The monsters had also changed. They no longer wandered aimlessly. Some gathered food, some collected materials, others guarded the perimeter in organized groups. Meruem stood at the center of the settlement, observing their progress. Better. One of the larger monsters lowered its head proudly. Meruem looked toward the forest. Something was approaching. This presence was different from the monsters he had encountered before. There were several of them. And they were moving together with remarkable discipline. Meruem immediately understood that they were not ordinary beasts. Prepare yourselves. The monsters stopped working. Do not attack unless I give the order. They quickly formed defensive positions. A few minutes later, several figures appeared between the trees. At the front was a red-haired man carrying a sword. Beside him were several warriors. The moment they entered the clearing, they stopped. Benimaru looked around. His expression became serious. The monster settlement was far more organized than he had expected. So this is the place. Souei appeared silently beside him. Yes. There are many monsters here. His eyes moved toward the center of the settlement. And there is the one leading them. Meruem stood several meters away. Their eyes met. Benimaru immediately felt something unusual. The monster standing before him did not have the wild hostility of most monsters. His posture was calm, his eyes were intelligent, and his presence was overwhelming. Benimaru placed one hand on his sword. Meruem noticed the movement. You are prepared to fight. Benimaru narrowed his eyes. And you seem prepared to do the same. Meruem glanced at the sword. I am prepared for anything. Souei silently observed him. The monster's movements were extremely controlled. There was no wasted motion. Even his breathing was steady. Souei's eyes narrowed. Benimaru. I know. Benimaru stepped forward. We came from Tempest. Meruem remained silent. Our lord has established a nation for monsters in this forest. We detected a new faction forming here and came to investigate. Meruem looked at him. Tempest. He repeated the name. He had heard it from wandering monsters. A nation ruled by a monster called Rimuru Tempest. Apparently, it was already powerful enough to establish peaceful relations with humans and other races. Meruem found that interesting. Why did you come? Benimaru answered honestly. We wanted to know whether your group was hostile. Meruem looked around at his followers. We have not attacked anyone. Yet. Benimaru's hand remained near his sword. Meruem noticed. You are cautious. I have to be. Meruem nodded. Reasonable. The tension remained. Then one of Meruem's guards suddenly growled. Rawr. The creature stepped forward. Benimaru's warriors immediately prepared themselves. Meruem raised his hand. Stop. The monster froze. They are guests. The guard reluctantly stepped back. Benimaru's eyes widened slightly. He had expected Meruem to encourage the hostility. Instead, the strange monster king had controlled his subordinate with a single command. Souei observed the scene carefully. He has absolute authority over them. Meruem looked at him. They follow because they trust me. Benimaru looked around again. The monsters were clearly following a strict hierarchy. They were not being controlled through fear alone. Some of them looked at Meruem with genuine respect. Benimaru lowered his hand from his sword. Then perhaps we can talk. Meruem nodded. That is why you came. The two sides sat around a simple wooden table. Meruem listened while Benimaru explained the existence of Tempest. He learned about Rimuru, about the demon lords, about the different monster races, about Magicules, and about the importance of naming. Meruem remained silent throughout the explanation. Then he asked one question. Your ruler gave names to his followers. Yes, and that increased their strength. Benimaru nodded. Considerably. Meruem's eyes sharpened. So this world had another method of evolution. Not only consumption, not only Magicules, but also names. He found the concept extremely interesting. I want to meet your ruler. Benimaru looked surprised. Rimuru. Yes. Souei glanced at Benimaru. The two exchanged looks. Benimaru finally nodded. I think he would want to meet you too. Meruem stood. Then arrange it. Benimaru smiled slightly. You really are direct. There is no reason to waste time. Before leaving, Benimaru looked toward the settlement. You built all of this in only a few days. Meruem glanced around. It was inefficient before. And now, still inefficient. Benimaru laughed. You really don't hold back. Meruem looked at him. If you want something to improve, pretending it is already perfect is pointless. Benimaru nodded. I understand. Souei suddenly disappeared. Meruem noticed immediately. His eyes shifted toward the forest. Your scout has already left. Benimaru smiled. That's Souei. Meruem nodded. Fast. Very. Meruem looked toward the direction Souei had disappeared. He had sensed almost nothing from the ninja. That alone made him interested. Your people are strong. Benimaru stood. So are yours. The Tempest patrol finally departed. Meruem watched them disappear between the trees. One of his followers approached. Are they enemies? Meruem shook his head. Not currently. The monster looked confused. Meruem continued. They are similar to us. Similar. They are building a society. He looked toward the distant forest. And their king may be worth meeting. Far away, Souei returned to Tempest. He immediately reported everything to Rimuru. There is a new monster faction in the Jura Great Forest. Rimuru looked up. Hostile. No. Souei paused. But their leader is unusual. Rimuru became curious. How unusual? Souei answered calmly. He is a Chimera Ant. Rimuru blinked. A what? His appearance is similar to an ant-like monster, but his intelligence is comparable to an experienced strategist. Rimuru leaned forward. And his name? Souei shook his head. He did not give one. Rimuru frowned. Then what does he call himself? Souei looked directly at him. Meruem. Rimuru repeated the name. Meruem. Seal immediately began analyzing the information. Rimuru's expression became serious. Interesting. Somewhere deep within the Jura Great Forest, Meruem was already preparing for the next meeting. This time, he would meet the King of Tempest. And neither of them knew how much that meeting would change the future of the forest. The following morning, Meruem stood at the edge of his settlement. The Tempest patrol had already left. Since their departure, he had been thinking about the information they had given him. Rimuru Tempest, a monster who had created a nation, a ruler who allowed different races to live together, and most importantly, a being who possessed a skill based on consumption. Meruem found that last detail particularly interesting. So there is another predator like me. He looked toward the forest. A familiar presence suddenly appeared. Several Magicules signatures were approaching rapidly. Meruem's followers immediately noticed them. Stay where you are. The monsters obeyed. Meruem waited alone. A few moments later, a blue-haired slime appeared between the trees. Behind him were Benimaru, Souei, and several other powerful monsters. Rimuru stopped several meters away. He looked at Meruem. Meruem looked at him. Neither spoke at first. Rimuru was surprised. The monster before him was unlike anything he had encountered in the Jura Great Forest. His appearance was strange, but his posture was completely controlled. There was no wild bloodlust. No reckless aggression. Instead, Meruem's eyes were constantly moving. Analyzing. Observing. Measuring. Rimuru felt a little uncomfortable. So you're Meruem? Yes. Rimuru smiled. I'm Rimuru Tempest. I know. Rimuru blinked. You already know. Your people told me about you. Rimuru nodded. Fair enough. Meruem studied him. You are smaller than I expected. Benimaru's expression changed. Souei quietly covered a smile. Rimuru stared at Meruem. You know, that's not exactly a polite way to greet someone. Meruem's expression remained unchanged. Size is irrelevant. Rimuru sighed. Then why mention it? Observation. Right. The two leaders moved toward the settlement. Rimuru carefully examined everything around him. The monsters had built shelters. Food was organized. Guards were stationed around the perimeter. Even the weakest monsters had assigned tasks. Rimuru was impressed. You organized all of this? Yes. In only a few days. It was necessary. Rimuru looked at the monsters working around them. You didn't name them. No. Why? Meruem looked at him. I don't understand the process yet. Rimuru explained the naming system. How giving a name consumed enormous amounts of Magicules. How the named monster could evolve depending on the strength and nature of the one giving the name. Meruem listened carefully. So a name can alter the structure of a monster. Basically. Meruem nodded. Interesting. Rimuru noticed the look in his eyes. You want to try it? Not yet. Why? Because I don't give power to someone without understanding the consequences. Rimuru smiled. That's actually a pretty good answer. They eventually reached a large clearing. Rimuru sat across from Meruem. Benimaru and Souei remained nearby. The conversation began peacefully. Meruem asked about Tempest. Rimuru explained how the nation had developed. He talked about trade, alliances, humans, dwarves, and monsters. Meruem listened without interrupting. Then he asked, why do you protect weaker creatures? Rimuru paused. Because I don't think strength should be the only thing deciding who gets to live. Meruem stared at him. The answer reminded him of something. Kamugi. The memories returned briefly. A blind girl who had been weaker than him in every physical sense. Yet she had defeated him repeatedly on the Gunji board. Meruem looked away. Rimuru noticed the change. Something wrong. No. Meruem returned his attention to him. Your answer is reasonable. Rimuru smiled. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment. Suddenly, Ciel's voice echoed inside Rimuru's mind. Analysis complete. Target possesses an abnormal biological energy conversion system. Unique skill detected. Classification. Synthesis King. Rimuru's eyes widened slightly. You have a unique skill. Meruem nodded. Synthesis King. What does it do? It allows me to absorb and synthesize biological properties and energy. Rimuru became interested immediately. Like Beelzebub. Similar. Rimuru's expression changed. Really? Your skill consumes. Meruem raised one hand. Mine synthesizes. Rimuru looked at him carefully. Ciel continued its analysis. The fundamental principle is similar, but the operation is different. Rimuru smiled. That's interesting. Meruem nodded. Your skill and mine may be related through the world system. I was thinking the same thing. For the first time, both of them showed genuine interest. Two rulers. Two predators. Two abilities built around consumption. But neither seemed interested in immediately testing which one was stronger. Benimaru suddenly spoke. If you two are finished analyzing each other, perhaps we should discuss the important matter. Rimuru looked at him. Right. He turned toward Meruem. What do you want? Meruem answered immediately. Peace. Rimuru raised an eyebrow. That's all. For now. Meruem looked toward his settlement. My people need territory and resources. I have no interest in fighting Tempest. Rimuru nodded. Then we can work together. Under one condition. Rimuru became cautious. What condition? My territory remains independent. Rimuru smiled. I wasn't planning to take it. Meruem studied him. Good. Rimuru extended his hand. Then we have an agreement. Meruem looked at the offered hand. After a moment, he accepted it. Agreed. Their hands met. No explosion occurred. No magical light appeared. But the agreement between the two monster rulers had been established. Before leaving, Rimuru looked back at Meruem. There's something else. What? You should visit Tempest. Meruem raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I think you'll find it interesting. Meruem considered the offer. He wanted to see the nation himself. He wanted to understand its structure. And perhaps more importantly, he wanted to meet the other powerful beings living there. I accept. Rimuru smiled. Great. He turned toward the path. Then I'll arrange everything. Meruem watched him leave. Benimaru followed. Souei disappeared into the trees. Soon, only the monsters of Meruem's settlement remained. One of them approached. King Meruem. Meruem looked at him. Prepare the settlement. For what? Meruem looked toward the direction Rimuru had taken. We are going to Tempest. The monster lowered his head. Yes, King. Meruem turned back toward his territory. His first diplomatic meeting had ended peacefully. But his curiosity had only grown. Somewhere in Tempest, another predator possessed a power similar to his own. And Meruem intended to discover exactly how strong Rimuru Tempest really was. The next morning, Meruem arrived at Tempest. The city was far more impressive than he had expected. Large buildings stood beside wide roads. Monsters of different races moved freely through the streets, carrying supplies, working in shops, or simply talking with one another. Meruem observed everything. There was no obvious fear between the races. The stronger monsters did not simply dominate the weaker ones. Instead, everyone appeared to have a role. Interesting. Rimuru, who was walking beside him, smiled. Told you. Meruem looked toward the people around them. Your city is unusually organized. We've worked hard on it. Meruem nodded. I can see that. They eventually reached a large training ground. Benimaru was already waiting there. He stood with his arms crossed, his sword resting at his side. Rimuru-sama. Benimaru. Rimuru pointed toward Meruem. You've already met him. Yes. Benimaru looked directly at Meruem. I've been waiting. Meruem understood immediately. You want to fight? Benimaru smiled. Just a spar. Rimuru sighed. You two really couldn't wait. Benimaru looked at Meruem. I want to know how strong you are. Meruem accepted without hesitation. Very well. The surrounding soldiers immediately moved away from the training area. Souei appeared on top of a nearby building. Xian and several other monsters gathered around the arena. Rimuru took a position outside the battlefield. No killing. Meruem looked at him. Obvious. Benimaru drew his sword. Flames immediately covered the blade. Meruem lowered his stance. His tail moved behind him. The atmosphere changed. Both disappeared. Boom. Benimaru's sword collided with Meruem's arm. The force pushed dust across the ground. Meruem had blocked the attack with his bare hand. Benimaru immediately followed with another slash. Meruem tilted his head. The blade passed beside him. Meruem stepped inside Benimaru's range and struck with his palm. Benimaru blocked with his arm. Boom. He was pushed backward several meters. His eyes narrowed. Powerful. Meruem did not answer. He was analyzing. Benimaru's swordsmanship was precise. His flames increased the destructive power of every attack. But there was a pattern. Meruem noticed that Benimaru shifted his right foot slightly before launching a stronger strike. He waited. Benimaru attacked again. Slash. Meruem avoided the blade. Another attack followed immediately. Meruem stepped backward. Then another. He continued avoiding the attacks without countering. Benimaru frowned. Why aren't you attacking? I'm observing. What? Meruem moved. In an instant, he appeared beside Benimaru. His hand stopped just before Benimaru's chest. The fight was over. Benimaru froze. Meruem lowered his hand. Your attacks become stronger when you commit your weight to the front. Benimaru stared at him. You figured that out already? After 3 exchanges, Souei's expression became serious. Rimuru smiled. That's Meruem. Benimaru stepped back. Then I'll change my pattern. His flames intensified. The temperature around the arena increased. Meruem's eyes sharpened. Good. Benimaru charged again. This time, his movements were different. He changed his rhythm. He attacked from unexpected angles. Meruem blocked one strike, then another. The two exchanged blows across the training ground. Clash. Boom. Crack. Meruem's physical strength was overwhelming, but Benimaru's swordsmanship and flames prevented him from simply overpowering him. For several seconds, neither gained a decisive advantage. Then Meruem suddenly stopped. Benimaru swung his sword. Meruem moved his head slightly. The blade passed by. He grabbed Benimaru's wrist, then twisted. The sword fell. Before Benimaru could recover, Meruem placed 2 fingers against his chest. Finished. Silence. Benimaru looked down at the fallen sword. Then he laughed. I lost. Meruem released him. Your technique is good. Benimaru picked up his sword. But, you rely too much on power once you become confident. Benimaru nodded. I'll remember that. Rimuru walked into the arena. Well, that ended better than I expected. Benimaru looked at him. You knew he would win. Rimuru shrugged. I wasn't sure. Meruem looked at Rimuru. You are stronger than you appear. Rimuru froze. What? Meruem continued. Your Magicules are unusual. Seal immediately responded inside Rimuru's mind. Target has correctly identified the abnormal structure of your Magicule flow. Rimuru's expression became awkward. You're pretty observant. Meruem smiled faintly. It is difficult to hide strength from someone who constantly analyzes his surroundings. Souei landed beside them. Then perhaps you should test yourself against Rimuru-sama. Rimuru immediately turned toward Souei. Why are you trying to get me involved? Souei remained completely calm. I am curious. Meruem looked at Rimuru. Rimuru looked back. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Rimuru laughed. Not today. Meruem nodded. Another time. Definitely. The 2 leaders walked away from the training ground. Behind them, Benimaru looked at the damaged arena. He had lost, but instead of feeling humiliated, he felt motivated. Meruem had not fought him with hatred or arrogance. He had simply analyzed the battle and won. That made the defeat easier to accept. Rimuru glanced at Meruem. You enjoyed that, yes. You really like fighting strong opponents, don't you? Meruem looked ahead. Strong opponents provide information. Rimuru smiled. That's one way to put it. Meruem's eyes shifted toward the city. He had learned something important. Tempest was not merely a monster settlement. It was a nation filled with powerful individuals. And its ruler, Rimuru Tempest, was clearly hiding far more strength than he showed. Meruem's curiosity increased. Perhaps their meeting had only just begun. The morning after the sparring match, Meruem returned to the meeting room in Tempest. Rimuru was already waiting. Benimaru stood nearby, while Souei remained against the wall in silence. A large map of the Jura Great Forest covered the table. Rimuru pointed toward several areas. This is Tempest. Then he pointed toward the eastern side. And this is your territory. Meruem studied the map. There are several monster groups between us. Yes. Some are neutral, some are hostile, and some simply don't care about either of us. Meruem nodded. Then we need clear borders. Rimuru smiled. Exactly. Meruem leaned over the map. Your patrols should avoid entering my territory without permission. Agreed. My monsters will do the same. Rimuru nodded. And if either side encounters a hostile monster group, Meruem answered immediately. We inform the other. Benimaru looked surprised. You would actually share information. Meruem glanced at him. Why wouldn't I? Some rulers would keep the information for themselves. That would be inefficient. Rimuru laughed. That's Meruem's answer to everything. Meruem ignored the comment. He continued examining the map. There is another issue. Rimuru became serious. What? Resources. Meruem pointed toward a river running between the two territories. Both territories depend on this water source. We can share it. Meruem looked at him. Without conflict, yes. Then establish a neutral zone. Rimuru nodded. Done. Meruem continued. Trade would also be beneficial. Rimuru's eyes widened slightly. You're interested in trade. My territory lacks several materials. Tempest has plenty. Then we exchange. Rimuru smiled. Food, metals, medicine, construction materials, and information. Rimuru nodded. Fair. The discussion continued for several hours. They established patrol routes. They created emergency communication methods. They agreed that neither side would attack the other's citizens. Any dispute between their monsters would be settled by representatives from both territories. Meruem insisted on one final condition. If either of us is attacked by an external force, the other will not be forced to join the war. Rimuru looked at him. You want neutrality. I want freedom of choice. Rimuru thought about it, then nodded. Agreed. Meruem extended his hand. Rimuru shook it. The agreement was complete. There was no ceremony, no magical contract, just two rulers agreeing to respect each other's territory. Later that afternoon, Rimuru and Meruem walked through Tempest. Meruem observed the city more carefully this time. A dwarf merchant was selling weapons beside a goblin craftsman. A lizard man was delivering food. Several children from different monster races were playing together. Humans entered the city without being attacked. Meruem stopped. You achieved this quickly. Rimuru smiled. It took a lot of work. How did you convince the different races? Some were afraid, and the others, they were given reasons to cooperate. Meruem looked at him. Not fear. No. Not domination. No. Meruem nodded. Interesting. Rimuru glanced at him. What about your territory? We are still at the beginning. You could use help. Meruem looked at him. What are you offering? Builders. Meruem raised an eyebrow. You would send them? Yes. Without demanding anything. We'll trade. Meruem considered the proposal. Acceptable. Rimuru smiled. Then I'll send a team tomorrow. A messenger suddenly arrived. He was breathing heavily. Rimuru-sama. Rimuru turned. What happened? There was an attack near the western border. Meruem's eyes immediately sharpened. Who attacked? We don't know. Several monsters were injured. Souei appeared beside them. I'll investigate. Meruem stopped him. Wait. Souei looked at him. Meruem pointed toward the messenger. Ask where the attack happened. The messenger explained the location. Meruem immediately recognized it. That's near the neutral zone. Rimuru's expression became serious. You think someone is testing the border? Possibly. Meruem looked at the map. If we react carelessly, the agreement becomes meaningless. Rimuru nodded. Then we'll investigate first. Souei returned several hours later. The attackers were a group of armed monsters. Rimuru asked, who sent them? We don't know. Meruem examined the captured weapon that Souei brought back. He turned it over in his hand. These aren't from the local monsters. Benimaru frowned. How can you tell? The metal is processed differently. Meruem pointed toward the edge. In this symbol, Rimuru looked closer. A crest. Yes. Souei nodded. I found the same symbol on several weapons. Rimuru became serious. Someone outside the forest is supplying them. Meruem placed the weapon on the table. Then our agreement has already attracted attention. From someone who doesn't want us cooperating. Meruem nodded. Which means they may attack again. Rimuru smiled slightly. Then we'll be ready. Meruem looked at him. Together. Together. The next morning, workers from Tempest arrived at Meruem's settlement. They brought tools, food, medicine, and construction materials. Meruem watched them begin building. His monsters were initially suspicious. But soon, they started working alongside the Tempest workers. One goblin showed a large monster how to build a stronger wall. Another monster carried several heavy logs at once. The goblin stared. "That's a lot." The monster proudly grinned. Meruem watched from a distance. His settlement was changing. Roads were being built. Storage buildings were constructed. The defensive wall became stronger. For the first time, the monsters under his command were not merely surviving. They were developing. Meruem looked toward the workers. Then toward Tempest's territory. The two nations were still separate. But the distance between them was becoming smaller. That evening, Rimuru visited again. "Looks like things are going well." Meruem nodded. "Your people are useful." Rimuru smiled. "I'll take that as praise." Meruem looked toward the western forest. "We should investigate the crest." "Agreed. Whoever is supplying those monsters may become a threat to both territories." Rimuru nodded. "Then we'll deal with them together." Meruem looked at him. "You trust me quickly." Rimuru smiled. "You could say the same about me." Meruem considered his words. Then he gave a faint smile. Perhaps. The non-aggression pact had been established. Trade had begun. Their territories were growing closer. But somewhere beyond the Jura Great Forest, someone had already begun preparing their next move. Several weeks passed after the non-aggression pact was established. Meruem's territory had grown rapidly. The simple shelters had become proper buildings. Food storage was organized, patrol routes were established, and the monsters had learned to work together instead of fighting over every resource. Meruem stood on the highest point of the settlement, looking toward the western forest. The strange crest discovered on the weapons had not been forgotten. Souei had continued investigating. Then, one evening, he returned. Meruem turned. "You found them." "Yes." Souei placed a map on the table. "There is a group of armed monsters operating from an abandoned fortress several kilometers west of your territory." Meruem studied the map. "How many?" "Roughly 3,000. Benimaru, who had accompanied Souei, frowned. "They've been gathering supplies and recruiting monsters." Meruem's eyes narrowed. "Their objective? We don't know." Meruem pointed toward the fortress. "Then we find out." The next morning, Meruem led his forces toward the fortress. He did not bring every monster. Only the strongest and most disciplined warriors accompanied him. The rest remained behind to protect the settlement. As they approached, Meruem raised his hand. Everyone stopped. He could sense dozens of enemies behind the walls. Weapons, Magicules, and something else. "They are preparing an ambush." Benimaru looked at him. "How many?" "Enough." Meruem stepped forward. The fortress gates opened. Arrows immediately flew through the air. "Attack!" The enemy forces charged. Meruem's soldiers moved according to the formation he had taught them. The front line raised their shields. The second line attacked between the gaps. The rear units launched magic attacks. The invading force expected chaos. Instead, they encountered an organized army. Meruem walked directly through the battlefield. An enemy warrior swung an axe at him. He caught the weapon. Crack! The axe broke. One strike sent the warrior flying. Another enemy attacked from behind. Meruem turned without looking. His tail struck the attacker and sent him crashing into the ground. Boom! His soldiers watched their king move through the battlefield like a natural disaster. But Meruem did not kill unnecessarily. He struck weapons from hands. He disabled legs. He knocked enemies unconscious. His orders were clear. Capture those who surrender. His commanders obeyed. Within minutes, the outer defenses collapsed. The enemy commander finally appeared. He was a large armored monster carrying a massive sword. "You." He pointed toward Meruem. "You're the one who created this territory." Meruem walked forward. "Yes. We were told this forest belonged to no one." "It doesn't." Meruem stopped. "But you attacked my people." The commander laughed. "Then defend them." He charged. His sword came down with tremendous force. Meruem caught it with one hand. The commander froze. Meruem looked at him. Too slow. He struck the monster's chest. Boom. The commander crashed into the fortress wall. Meruem walked toward him. "Who supplied your weapons?" The commander refused to answer. Meruem stared at him. You don't need to die. The monster remained silent. Meruem released a small amount of aura. The commander immediately understood the difference between them. He lowered his weapon. We were hired. By whom? Humans. Meruem's expression changed slightly. Which humans? The commander shook his head. I don't know. Meruem remained silent. That answer was insufficient. But before he could continue, a tremendous explosion erupted inside the fortress. Boom! Everyone turned. A hidden Magicule storage chamber had been destroyed. The entire fortress began collapsing. Retreat. Meruem immediately ordered his soldiers to move away. The walls collapsed. Dust covered the battlefield. When it cleared, several containers of concentrated Magicule crystals were visible beneath the ruins. Meruem approached them. His synthesis king reacted immediately. The energy was enormous. He touched one of the crystals. Magicules rushed into his body. High-density Magicule source detected. Synthesis available. Meruem absorbed it. The energy spread through his body. His Magicule capacity increased dramatically. His muscles tightened. His senses became sharper. Then another notification appeared. Evolution potential detected. Meruem stopped. He could feel something changing inside his soul. The Magicules he had accumulated from the battle, combined with the energy from the crystals and the souls of the defeated enemies, were gathering together. Rimuru suddenly appeared nearby. Meruem. Meruem turned. Rimuru had arrived with Benimaru and several Tempest soldiers. Rimuru looked at the battlefield. What happened? We won. Rimuru stared at the enormous amount of Magicules surrounding Meruem. Then Seal spoke. Soul energy accumulation has reached critical levels. Evolution is possible. Rimuru's expression became serious. Meruem, you're evolving. Meruem looked at his hands. The energy continued gathering. He could feel his existence changing. I see. Rimuru took a step back. If you're going to evolve, you should prepare yourself. Meruem nodded. He closed his eyes. The Magicules around him intensified. Wind swept through the battlefield. The remaining monsters lowered their heads. Meruem's body began glowing. His aura expanded across the entire area. Then, boom, a massive wave of energy erupted. The battlefield disappeared beneath a cloud of dust. When the dust settled, Meruem was still standing. But his presence had changed. His eyes opened. The pressure radiating from him was far greater than before. Rimuru stared. Seal immediately began analyzing. Soul evolution confirmed. Energy capacity greatly increased. Unique skill, Synthesis King, undergoing structural transformation. Meruem looked toward Rimuru. Something has changed. Rimuru smiled. You've taken the first step toward becoming a demon lord. Meruem looked at the unconscious enemies scattered across the battlefield. Then at his soldiers. None of them had been killed. His territory remained safe. His people had defended themselves successfully. Meruem slowly turned toward the horizon. He could feel the immense power now sleeping within him. But he did not celebrate. Instead, he gave his next order. Return to the settlement. His commanders lowered their heads. Yes, King. The army began marching home. Behind them, the abandoned fortress burned. And within Meruem's soul, the evolution that would transform him into something far greater had already begun. The battlefield had become quiet. The fortress that had once belonged to the enemy was now nothing more than a pile of broken stone. Meruem stood among the ruins. His body had not changed dramatically, but the energy surrounding him was completely different. The Magicules within his body had become denser. His senses had expanded. He could hear the movements of insects several hundred meters away. He could feel the flow of Magicules beneath the ground. Even the slightest change in the air reached him. Then a voice appeared inside his mind. Evolution process complete. Unique skill, Synthesis King, has evolved. Ultimate skill acquisition confirmed. Meruem opened his eyes. Ultimate skill. Light King, Meruem. The moment the skill manifested, an enormous amount of information flooded his consciousness. Meruem remained perfectly still. He understood the ability almost immediately. Light King had inherited the fundamental properties of Synthesis King, but its range and precision had increased tremendously. His perception could now spread across a vast area. Anything within his range could be detected through its Magicule signature. Living creatures, weapons, barriers, magic, even hidden enemies could not easily escape his perception. Meruem slowly extended his hand. A small sphere of light appeared above his palm. The light was almost white, but inside it was an incredibly dense concentration of energy. Rimuru, who was standing several meters away, immediately became serious. "That's your new skill." Meruem nodded. "Yes." Seal began analyzing it. The skill possesses an extremely advanced energy conversion function. Target can convert Magicules into photonic energy. Absorption and synthesis capabilities have also been enhanced. Rimuru's eyes widened. "So you can turn Magicules into light?" Among other things. Meruem closed his hand. The sphere disappeared. Later that day, Meruem returned to his territory. His followers immediately noticed the change. The moment he entered the settlement, every monster lowered its head. They could feel the enormous pressure surrounding their king. Meruem raised his hand. "Stand." The monsters obeyed. He looked across the settlement. "Our territory was attacked. The monsters remained silent. We defended it." Several warriors raised their heads proudly. "From today onward, our defenses will be strengthened." Meruem began issuing orders. New watchtowers would be constructed. Patrols would cover every entrance. Food storage would be expanded. The strongest warriors would receive specialized training. The settlement would no longer depend entirely on Meruem's strength. He wanted his people to become capable of protecting themselves. Rimuru watched from the side. He smiled. "You're really serious about building a nation?" Meruem looked at him. "Yes. Not just an army. An army protects a nation." Meruem looked toward the monsters working around them. "It does not create one." Rimuru nodded. "I understand." Several days later, Meruem decided to test his new ultimate skill. He traveled alone into a remote section of the forest. He closed his eyes. Then he released his perception. A wave of energy spread outward. The world around him seemed to become transparent. He could sense trees, rocks, water, animals, monsters, Magicules. Everything became part of his awareness. Meruem opened his eyes. His perception expanded even farther. He could now distinguish individual Magicule signatures. One monster several kilometers away. Another hiding underground. A flock of birds moving through the sky. He could even identify the difference between natural Magicules and those produced by living creatures. Meruem smiled. "This is useful." Suddenly, he sensed something unusual. A powerful Magicule signature was moving rapidly toward his territory. Meruem's expression changed. He immediately recognized it. Rimuru. But Rimuru was not alone. Several other powerful presences accompanied him. Meruem turned toward the direction of the settlement. So soon, when Meruem returned, Rimuru was waiting. Benimaru and Souei stood behind him. Rimuru looked at Meruem. "I felt your evolution from Tempest." Meruem nodded. "I became a demon lord." "More or less." Rimuru smiled. "And your skill?" "It evolved." Meruem revealed the name. "Ultimate skill, Light King, Meruem." Benimaru's expression became serious. Souei narrowed his eyes. Rimuru simply smiled. "That's quite a name." Meruem looked at him. "Your skill is also unusual." Rimuru laughed. "Fair enough." For a moment, neither said anything. Then Rimuru stepped forward. "Congratulations." Meruem nodded. "Thank you." It was a simple exchange. But both understood what it meant. Meruem had crossed another boundary. He was no longer merely a powerful monster in the Jura Great Forest. He had become a demon lord. That evening, Meruem stood outside his settlement. The moon illuminated the forest. His followers were celebrating quietly. There was food, music, and laughter. Meruem watched them from a distance. He remembered another time, another place, another girl, Kamugi. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. This time, he did not feel regret. He simply remembered. Meruem looked toward his kingdom. His people were alive, his territory was growing, and he possessed enough power to protect them. But there was still much he did not understand about this world. The demon lords, the true dragons, the humans, the ancient monsters, and the mysterious powers that existed beyond the Jura Great Forest. Meruem's eyes sharpened. Becoming stronger was no longer his only objective. He needed knowledge, he needed allies, and eventually, he would need to understand where he stood among the rulers of this world. Behind him, one of his commanders approached. King Meruem. Meruem turned. What is it? Rimuru-sama has sent an invitation. Meruem looked toward Tempest. For what? A gathering of the demon lords. Meruem was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. Accept it. The commander lowered his head. Yes, King. Meruem looked toward the distant horizon. His first encounter with the great rulers of this world was approaching. And now, he would enter their world not as an unknown monster, but as a newly awakened demon lord. The invitation from Rimuru arrived 3 days later. Meruem read the message once before handing it back to his commander. A gathering of demon lords. Yes, King. Meruem looked toward the distant forest. He had heard enough about the demon lords to understand that this was not an ordinary meeting. They were among the strongest beings in the world. Some ruled territories, some commanded entire races, others possessed enough power to destroy nations. Meruem accepted the invitation. Prepare the delegation. The journey to Tempest was uneventful. Meruem traveled with several of his strongest followers while the rest remained behind to protect their territory. When they reached the city, Meruem immediately noticed the difference. The streets were crowded. Monsters of many races moved freely among humans and demi-humans. There were merchants, soldiers, craftsmen, and travelers everywhere. Meruem observed them silently. This city has grown. One of his commanders nodded. Yes, King. They were escorted directly toward the meeting hall. Rimuru was waiting at the entrance. Meruem. Rimuru. Rimuru smiled. Glad you came. Meruem looked at the large building behind him. The others are already here. Most of them. Meruem nodded. Then let's proceed. The moment Meruem entered the hall, several gazes immediately focused on him. Some were curious. Some were amused. Others were openly hostile. At the center of the room stood Guy Crimson. His crimson eyes examined Meruem from head to toe. Guy smiled. So you're the new demon lord. Meruem looked at him. Yes. You're quite different from the others. So are you. Guy laughed. I like him already. Nearby, Milim Nava immediately approached. You're a Chimera Ant. Meruem looked at her. Yes. How strong are you? Rimuru immediately interrupted. Milim. What? Don't start a fight. Milim pouted. I was only asking. Meruem looked at her. Your Magicules are unusually high. Milim's eyes widened. You can tell. Easily. Milim grinned. Then you're interesting. The meeting began. Rimuru formally introduced Meruem to the demon lords. Meruem listened carefully as each ruler was presented. He paid particular attention to their abilities and territories. Guy Crimson, Milim Nava, Ramirez, and the others. Meruem quickly realized that every demon lord possessed a completely different style of power. Some relied on overwhelming energy. Others relied on special abilities. Some possessed strange authorities that could alter the battlefield itself. Meruem did not underestimate any of them. Guy suddenly spoke. You became a demon lord recently, right? Yes. How? Meruem answered calmly. Evolution. Guy smiled. That's vague. There is nothing complicated about it. Meruem explained how the accumulation of souls, Magicules, and the growth of his synthesis king had triggered his evolution. Guy listened carefully. Then his expression became more serious. And your skill, ultimate skill, Light King, Meruem. The room became quieter. Several demon lords immediately became interested. Rimuru glanced toward Meruem. His skill is basically an evolved version of Synthesis King. Guy leaned forward. What does it do? Meruem looked at him. Perception, energy conversion, synthesis, and absorption. Guy's smile disappeared. Absorption. Yes. Similar to Rimuru. Similar. Guy glanced at Rimuru, then back at Meruem. Interesting. Milim suddenly slammed both hands onto the table. I want to see it. Everyone turned toward her. Rimuru sighed. Milim. What? We're having a meeting. Then we can have a meeting after the fight. Meruem looked at her. You want to fight me? Milim nodded enthusiastically. Yes. Meruem remained silent. He could sense the enormous energy inside her. She was not an ordinary demon lord. Far from it. Another time. Milim frowned. Why? Because this meeting has a purpose. Rimuru smiled. Thank you. Milim crossed her arms. Fine. Guy laughed. You really are patient. Meruem looked at him. There is no advantage in fighting without reason. Guy's eyes narrowed slightly. That's something I can agree with. The meeting continued. Rimuru explained the current balance between the demon lords and the growing influence of Tempest. Meruem listened carefully. When his turn came, he explained the situation in his own territory. He described the settlement, its defenses, its growing population, and the recent attack by the unidentified faction. Several demon lords became interested. Someone attacked you? Rimuru asked. Yes. Did you discover who was behind it? Not completely. Meruem placed the captured weapon on the table. But they were supplied with equipment from outside the forest. Guy examined the weapon. His expression became colder. Someone is testing the borders. Meruem nodded. That is my conclusion. Rimuru looked around the room. Then we should keep an eye on the situation. The other demon lords agreed. When the meeting finally ended, Meruem stood outside the hall. The evening wind passed through the city. Rimuru approached him. What do you think? Meruem looked at the city. Your demon lords are dangerous. Rimuru laughed. That's one way to describe them. Milim is especially unusual. You noticed. Immediately. Rimuru smiled. And Guy. Meruem looked toward the meeting hall. He is stronger than he appears. Rimuru's expression became serious. You could say the same about yourself. Meruem did not deny it. Then footsteps approached. Guy walked out of the building. He stopped beside them. Meruem. Meruem turned. Guy smiled. Next time we meet, I want to see what that ultimate skill can really do. Meruem stared at him. Perhaps. Guy laughed. Good answer. He walked away. Meruem watched him disappear. The meeting had ended peacefully. But he had gained something more valuable than recognition. Information. He now knew the rulers of this world. He understood their personalities, their powers, and the level of strength they possessed. Meruem looked toward the night sky. His crimson eyes became sharper. He had entered the world of demon lords. And from this moment onward, the entire world would begin to take notice of the Chimera King. Several months had passed since Meruem was recognized as a demon lord. His territory had continued to expand. The settlement now had proper walls, watchtowers, training grounds, storage facilities, and roads connecting it to Tempest. Trade between the two nations had also become routine. For the monsters under Meruem, life had changed completely. They no longer needed to fight over food. They no longer feared stronger monsters taking everything from them. Meruem had established rules, and his followers followed them. But peace did not last. One morning, a scout rushed into the main hall. King Meruem. Meruem looked up. Report. The scout knelt. An army has entered our western territory. Meruem immediately became serious. How large? At least several thousand. Species. Mostly humans. There are also armored monsters and magical machines. Meruem stood. How far? Less than an hour from the outer settlement. Meruem walked toward the map. Where are they going? The scout pointed. Directly toward us. Meruem studied the route. There was no hesitation in his expression. Prepare the army. The alarm spread through the settlement. Warriors gathered at the walls. Archers took their positions. Mages prepared their spells. The strongest monsters stood near the front gate. Meruem walked along the defensive line. Do not attack first. His commanders nodded. If they stop, we will speak. And if they attack, Meruem's eyes became cold. Then destroy their formation. The warriors lowered their heads. Yes, King. The Imperial army appeared on the horizon. Thousands of soldiers marched beneath a large banner. Behind them were massive armored machines covered in magical circuits. Their movements shook the ground. Boom! A large mechanical unit stepped forward. The monsters on the wall stared at it. One of them whispered, "What is that?" Meruem already understood. Magic machinery. The machine raised its arm. A cannon began charging. Meruem's eyes narrowed. They intend to attack immediately. The cannon fired. Boom! The projectile struck the outer wall. Stone exploded into the air. Several monsters were thrown backward. Meruem did not move. Attack! The battlefield erupted. Arrows flew from the walls. Magic spells struck the Imperial soldiers. The invading army responded with magical artillery. Boom! Boom! The entire area became chaotic. Meruem jumped from the wall. He landed directly in front of the Imperial formation. The soldiers froze. One commander shouted, "Kill him!" Dozens of soldiers charged. Meruem moved. His fist struck the first soldier. Boom! Another fell. Then another. His movements were too fast for ordinary soldiers to follow. He moved between them, striking weapons aside and knocking soldiers unconscious. One magical machine aimed at him. Meruem looked toward it. The cannon fired. He moved sideways. The projectile passed him and exploded behind him. Meruem disappeared. A moment later, he stood on top of the machine. His fist descended. Crack! The armor shattered. The machine collapsed. Meruem jumped down. Another machine fired. He caught the projectile with one hand. The soldiers stared in disbelief. Meruem crushed it. Weak. He threw the broken weapon aside. The Imperial soldiers began retreating. Their commander shouted, "Hold the line." Meruem's eyes moved toward him. He immediately recognized the commander as the center of their formation. There. Meruem vanished. The commander barely had time to raise his sword. Meruem grabbed his arm. Crack. The sword fell. Meruem placed one hand against his chest. "Tell your army to stop." The commander gritted his teeth. "Never." Meruem looked at him calmly. "Then you will lose everyone." The commander refused. Meruem released him. "Fine." He turned away. "Continue." His soldiers charged. The Imperial formation collapsed. Far away, another battle was taking place. A group of Imperial soldiers had attempted to enter Meruem's settlement from the eastern side. Souei appeared behind them. Wrong direction. The soldiers turned. Nothing was there. Then shadows moved. Within seconds, their weapons were destroyed. Souei's information reached Tempest. Rimuru immediately received the report. The Empire has attacked Meruem. Benimaru's expression darkened. "How many?" "Several thousand." Rimuru sighed. They really chose the wrong target. Seal completed its analysis. Meruem's forces are currently holding the Western Front. Estimated victory probability, 99.7%. Rimuru stared. That's absurd. Back on the battlefield, Meruem continued advancing. The Imperial army had lost its formation. Their magical machines were being destroyed one after another. Meruem noticed something unusual. One machine was much stronger than the others. Its core contained an enormous amount of energy. He approached it. The machine immediately fired. Meruem dodged. The projectile exploded behind him. Boom! He jumped onto its armor. The machine attempted to shake him off. Meruem grabbed the surface. Then he released Light King. His perception entered the machine. He saw its energy core. Its structure. Its magical circuits. Every weakness. Meruem's eyes sharpened. Found it. He placed his hand on the core. Synthesis King and Light King responded simultaneously. Energy flowed into his body. The machine suddenly stopped. High-density magical energy detected. Synthesis possible. Meruem absorbed the energy. The machine collapsed. His body became slightly brighter. The energy was different from ordinary Magicules. But his ultimate skill adapted quickly. New energy property acquired. Magical energy resistance increased. Meruem looked toward the remaining machines. So this is the Empire's technology. He understood. Their weapons were powerful, but dependent on complex energy systems. Once their weaknesses were understood, they became predictable. And predictable enemies were easy to defeat. The Imperial commander finally realized the situation. His army was losing. Their machines were useless. Their enemy's leader had not even shown signs of exhaustion. He raised a communication device. Retreat. The Imperial army began withdrawing. Meruem did not pursue them. His soldiers stopped at the border. The commander looked back at the monster king standing among the destroyed machines. Fear filled his eyes. Meruem simply watched. Remember this. The commander stopped. This territory is protected. His voice remained calm. If your empire attacks again, I will not allow you to retreat. The commander said nothing. He turned and fled. Later that evening, Rimuru arrived. He looked over the battlefield. Destroyed machines were scattered everywhere. Meruem stood in the center. Rimuru approached. You handled them. Yes. Any major injuries? Few. Rimuru looked at the destroyed machines. You absorbed their energy, didn't you? Meruem nodded. Their technology was useful. Seal immediately analyzed the energy signature. Meruem's N-Light King has successfully incorporated the foreign energy source. Rimuru smiled. You're getting stronger again. Meruem looked toward the horizon. The Empire will return. Probably. Next time, they may send someone stronger. Rimuru nodded. Then we'll be ready. Meruem turned toward his territory. His people were already repairing the damaged walls. The first Imperial invasion had failed. But Meruem knew this had only been a test. Somewhere far beyond the western border, the Empire had now learned that the monster ruling this region was not an ordinary demon lord. And the next army would come prepared for the Chimera King. The Imperial army did not retreat far. They established a temporary base several kilometers beyond Meruem's territory and began repairing their damaged machines. Meruem watched them from a distance. His N-Light King allowed him to perceive their movements without needing to approach. Hundreds of soldiers, dozens of magical machines, and one massive energy signature at the center of their formation. They brought something stronger. One of Meruem's commanders looked toward the distant camp. Should we attack? No. Meruem continued observing. Let them come. The commander lowered his head. Yes, King. The following morning, the Imperial army advanced again. This time, their formation was different. The magical machines moved at the front. Behind them were heavily armored soldiers carrying weapons infused with Magicules. At the center walked a massive machine unlike anything Meruem had seen before. Its body was covered in black armor. Several glowing cores rotated around its chest. The Imperial commander raised his hand. Advance. The army charged. Boom. Magical artillery fired toward Meruem's territory. Meruem stepped forward. His soldiers prepared to defend the walls. But Meruem raised his hand. Remain here. He walked alone toward the approaching army. The soldiers stared. One commander shouted, "He's alone." Another laughed, "Kill him." The first machine fired. Meruem disappeared. The projectile passed through empty air. Before the soldiers could react, Meruem appeared directly in front of the machine. His fist struck its chest. Boom. The armor cracked. The machine was pushed backward. Meruem looked at his fist. The impact had barely affected him. Slower than yesterday. The machine opened several weapon ports. Multiple magical beams fired simultaneously. Meruem moved between them. One passed beside his shoulder. Another crossed behind his head. He continued forward. His movements became faster. The soldiers could no longer see him clearly. Where is he? Behind you. Too late. Meruem struck the machine's back. Crack. Its armor shattered. He grabbed the exposed energy core. His N-Light King activated. The core's energy flooded into his body. High-density magical energy detected. Analyzing. Energy structure compatible. Synthesis initiated. Meruem's eyes began glowing. The surrounding battlefield became silent. He could feel every source of energy around him. Every machine, every soldier, every spell, everything was visible through his perception. Meruem slowly raised his hand. A small sphere of light formed above his palm. The soldiers froze. What is that? The sphere expanded, then disappeared. Meruem had already moved. He appeared beside another machine. One strike. Boom. Another machine fell. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the Imperial machines were collapsing across the battlefield. The Imperial commander finally ordered the strongest machine forward. Activate the Photon armor. The massive machine's body opened. Light erupted from its armor. A barrier formed around it. The machine accelerated. For the first time, Meruem's expression changed. Faster. The machine appeared in front of him. Its fist struck. Boom. Meruem blocked it. The impact pushed him backward. His feet carved two deep lines through the ground. The machine attacked again. Meruem dodged. The machine followed. Another strike. Meruem blocked. Boom. The shockwave flattened several nearby trees. Meruem looked at the machine carefully. Its speed was considerably higher than the previous models. Its armor was reinforced. Its energy output was enormous. But it had one weakness. Meruem smiled. You still rely on the same core. He activated N-Light King. His perception expanded. The machine's internal structure became clear. He saw the energy flowing through its circuits. He saw the moment its power shifted from one core to another. And he saw the opening. Meruem vanished. The machine fired. Nothing. Then Meruem appeared directly above it. His hand was already glowing. Photon. The energy concentrated around his palm. Burst. Boom. A brilliant explosion engulfed the machine. The barrier shattered. The armor broke apart. The machine collapsed to the ground. Silence returned. Meruem landed beside it. He placed one hand on the exposed core. The energy began flowing into his body. Synthesis complete. Photon energy acquired. Energy conversion efficiency increased. Physical energy resistance increased. Meruem closed his eyes. His entire body began emitting a faint golden-white glow. The soldiers stared in terror. He had absorbed their strongest weapon. And now he was using its energy himself. The Imperial commander finally understood. Retreat. The army began fleeing. Meruem looked toward them. He could easily catch them. But he did not. Instead, he raised one hand. A thin beam of light formed above his palm. He pointed it toward the sky. The beam shot upward. Whom? A brilliant column of light appeared above the battlefield. Every soldier stopped. Meruem lowered his hand. Leave. No one needed to hear the command twice. The remaining Imperial forces fled. Later that day, Rimuru arrived with Benimaru and Souei. They stared at the destroyed machines scattered across the battlefield. Rimuru looked at Meruem. You did this? Yes. All of it? Yes. Benimaru looked at the massive machine lying broken on the ground. That was their strongest unit. Meruem nodded. Its energy was useful. Rimuru sighed. Of course you absorbed it. Seal immediately analyzed Meruem. Photon energy has been integrated into N-Light King. Target's energy conversion efficiency has increased significantly. Rimuru looked impressed. So you've added another power to your skill. Meruem raised his hand. A tiny sphere of light appeared above his palm. It was much brighter than before. I can now control photon energy. Benimaru stared at it. That much power. Meruem closed his hand. The light disappeared. It is still incomplete. Rimuru smiled. You really are never satisfied. Meruem looked toward the distant horizon. There are stronger enemies. Rimuru's expression became serious. Yes. Meruem nodded. Then I will become stronger. The battlefield remained silent behind them. The Empire had lost another army. But this time, they had witnessed something far more dangerous than a powerful monster. They had given Meruem a new weapon. And he had already made it his own. The battle with the Empire had ended, but Meruem knew it was only the beginning. The enemy had already learned that ordinary soldiers and magical machines were not enough to defeat his forces. His territory needed stronger commanders. Not merely warriors. Leaders who could think independently, protect their people, and act according to his orders without needing constant supervision. 3 monsters had proven themselves during the previous battles. The first was a massive wolf-like monster named Varg. The second was a powerful reptilian warrior named Zark. The third was a winged beast named Sarah. All three had fought beside Meruem since the beginning of his territory. They had never abandoned their positions. They had never disobeyed an order. And during the Imperial invasion, each had protected the weaker monsters despite having opportunities to retreat. Meruem summoned them to the central hall. The three monsters knelt before him. "You have served well." Varg lowered his head. "We exist to serve our king." Meruem looked at each of them. "You are no longer ordinary monsters." The three raised their heads. Meruem continued, "You require names." The room became silent. Rimuru had already explained the naming system to him. Meruem understood the cost. Giving names consumed a tremendous amount of Magicules. But his existence had already evolved. His Magicule reserves were now enormous. He extended one hand toward the first monster. Varg. A surge of energy erupted. Boom. Magicules spread through the monster's body. Its muscles expanded. Dark armor formed over its skin. Two enormous horns emerged from its forehead. Varg released a deep roar. Roar. The evolution continued for several seconds. Then the energy disappeared. Varg stood again. His body was much larger than before. His eyes glowed with a fierce red light. Naming completed. Evolution confirmed. Demon Pure Class existence detected. Meruem nodded. "Stand, Varg." The newly evolved monster stood. "Yes, King." Meruem turned toward the second. Zark. The same phenomenon occurred. Magicules exploded outward. Zark's body transformed. His scales hardened into metallic armor, while two massive blades formed along his forearms. His senses expanded. His Magicule capacity increased dramatically. Naming completed. Evolution confirmed. Demon Pure Class existence detected. Zark lowered his head. "I shall protect your kingdom." Meruem nodded. Then he turned toward the final monster. Sarah was already trembling slightly. Not from fear, from anticipation. Meruem placed his hand on her head. Sarah. Light surrounded her body. Her wings expanded. The feathers transformed into brilliant energy-like structures. Her body became more streamlined, allowing her to move through the air at tremendous speed. A powerful Magicule signature erupted from her. Naming completed. Evolution confirmed. Demon Pure Class existence detected. Sarah opened her eyes. "King Meruem." Meruem stepped back. "Fly." Sarah immediately spread her wings. Whom? She shot into the sky. The force of her acceleration scattered clouds above the settlement. Several monsters looked upward in amazement. She returned moments later and landed before Meruem. "Your command." Meruem nodded. "Good." Rimuru had watched the entire process from the side. He approached Meruem after the ceremony. "You named all three." "Yes. That's going to consume a lot of Magicules." "I have enough." Rimuru smiled. "I figured you'd say that." Seal analyzed the three newly evolved monsters. All three subjects have undergone substantial evolutionary changes. Their loyalty toward Meruem has also strengthened. Rimuru looked at them. "They remind me of Benimaru and the others." Meruem glanced toward his three commanders. "They are my royal guard." Benimaru raised an eyebrow. "Royal guard?" Meruem nodded. "Their purpose is to protect the kingdom and enforce my orders." Benimaru smiled. "Then they have a lot of work ahead." Varg stepped forward. "We are prepared." Zark nodded. "Give us an enemy." Sarah folded her wings. "We will destroy them." Meruem looked at the three. "You will not destroy anyone without my order." All three immediately became silent. "Your strength is not an excuse for recklessness." Varg lowered his head. "Understood." Meruem continued. "Protect the civilians first." "Yes, King." "Protect the territory second." "Yes, King." "Only then do you pursue the enemy." The three commanders answered together. "Yes, King." Rimuru watched the exchange with interest. Meruem was not simply creating powerful subordinates. He was creating a military hierarchy. Each commander had a clear responsibility. Each unit had a purpose. And everyone understood the limits of their authority. Rimuru smiled. "You're really becoming a king." Meruem looked at him. I already was one. Rimuru laughed. Fair enough. That evening, the 3 royal guards began training with the other warriors. Varg focused on defensive combat. Zark trained the melee units. Sarah began teaching the flying monsters reconnaissance and aerial combat. Meruem watched from a distance. Their evolution had changed the balance of power within his territory. But there was still something missing. Communication. Information. He needed his commanders to understand what was happening across the entire kingdom. Meruem activated N-Light King. His perception spread across the territory. Every patrol became visible. Every village, every road, every monster. Nothing escaped his awareness. Then he shared a portion of that perception with the 3 royal guards. Varg suddenly froze. I can see. Zark looked around. The entire western border. Sarah stared toward the sky. Even the mountains. Meruem nodded. This is N-Light King. The 3 commanders immediately understood. With this, you can coordinate your forces without waiting for messengers. Varg lowered his head. Amazing. Meruem looked toward the western horizon. The Empire will attack again. Zark tightened his fists. Let them come. They will. Meruem's eyes became cold. But next time, they will face an organized kingdom. Later that night, a messenger arrived from Tempest. He carried a message from Rimuru. The Empire was gathering another force. This time, it was much larger. And among the reports was a disturbing detail. The enemy had begun developing weapons specifically designed to counter Meruem's Photon abilities. Meruem read the message. Then he smiled faintly. They are learning. Rimuru's messenger looked nervous. Yes, King. Meruem handed the message back. Good. The messenger blinked. Good. An enemy that learns is more useful than one that does not. Meruem turned toward his royal guards. Prepare the army. Varg, Zark, and Sarah immediately stepped forward. Yes, King. Meruem looked toward the distant horizon. His kingdom was growing. His royal guard had been born. And the next battle would determine whether his new army could stand without relying entirely on him. The Imperial army returned sooner than expected. This time, their numbers were far greater. Thousands of soldiers marched across the western plains, accompanied by massive magical machines covered in reinforced armor. At the center of the army stood a single warrior. His armor was black and silver, and a powerful Magicule core was embedded in his chest. Meruem watched from the walls of his territory. Beside him stood Varg, Zark, and Sarah. They have changed their formation, Meruem said. Varg looked toward the approaching army. More soldiers, and stronger machines, Zark added. Sarah spread her wings. There are also flying units. Meruem nodded. They learned from the previous battles. A horn sounded across the Imperial army. The attack began. Boom. Magical artillery struck the outer defenses. The walls shook, but remained intact. Hold your positions. Varg shouted. The royal guard moved immediately. Varg led the defensive units toward the western gate. Zark commanded the melee warriors. Sarah took to the sky with the aerial units. Meruem remained at the center. He was waiting. The enemy commander finally moved. The black armored warrior raised his hand. A massive magical barrier appeared around the Imperial army. Then thousands of magical weapons activated at once. Fire. A storm of energy crossed the battlefield. Boom, boom. The defensive line was pushed backward. Several monsters fell. Varg immediately moved to protect them. Fall back. He blocked a powerful projectile with his armored body. Crack. His armor cracked, but he remained standing. Zark charged through the enemy formation. His blades destroyed several machines. Sarah attacked from above, striking the flying units before they could reach the settlement. The battle quickly spread across the entire battlefield. Meruem watched. His eyes moved constantly. He analyzed the enemy's movements. Their weapons, their formations, their energy flow. Then his gaze stopped on the black armored commander. So that's their main weapon. The warrior suddenly disappeared. He reappeared directly in front of Meruem. Boom. Their fists collided. The impact sent a shockwave across the wall. Meruem remained standing. The commander stepped backward. You are Meruem. Yes. The Empire has prepared specifically for you. The commander's armor opened. Several energy cores activated around his body. Meruem immediately detected the structure. The armor was designed to resist photon energy. Its core converted incoming energy into defensive barriers. Meruem smiled. You prepared for my light. The commander attacked. Meruem blocked. Another strike followed. Meruem dodged. The commander was fast. Faster than the previous machines. But his movements were still predictable. Meruem countered with a kick. Boom. The commander crashed through the wall. He immediately stood. Your photon attacks are useless against this armor. Meruem walked toward him. I don't need them. The commander froze. Meruem grabbed his arm. The N-Light King activated. His perception entered the armor. He saw every circuit, every energy pathway, every weakness. Then he smiled. Found it. The commander's eyes widened. Meruem placed his palm against the center of the armor. Instead of releasing energy, he absorbed it. The armor began trembling. High-density energy detected. Foreign energy source identified. Synthesis available. The commander struggled. What are you doing? Meruem's eyes glowed. Taking it. Energy poured into his body. The armor's barrier collapsed. The commander fell to one knee. Meruem continued absorbing. The energy entered his Magicule network and merged with his existing photon energy. His body became more resistant. His muscles became denser. His Magicule circulation improved. Synthesis complete. Energy resistance increased. Defensive structure acquired. Adaptive barrier generated. Meruem released the commander. The warrior collapsed. His armor was completely inactive. Meruem looked at his own hand. A faint layer of light surrounded his skin. The enemy's strongest weapon had become part of his body. Your preparation was useful. Across the battlefield, the Imperial army began losing ground. Varg had broken the western formation. Zark had destroyed the artillery units. Sarah and the aerial warriors had eliminated most of the enemy's flying forces. Meruem looked toward his commanders. They were fighting independently. They did not need him to give every order. That was exactly what he wanted. Advance. The Royal Guard responded immediately. Varg roared. Push forward. Zark led the melee warriors through the center. Sarah descended from above. The remaining Imperial forces were surrounded. The army commander looked around in panic. Retreat. But there was nowhere to go. Meruem's forces had already cut off their escape route. Within minutes, the Imperial army surrendered. The battlefield became quiet. After the battle, Meruem walked among the surviving enemy soldiers. He did not execute them. Instead, he ordered them to be disarmed and treated for their injuries. Varg looked confused. King, they attacked us. Yes. Why spare them? Meruem looked toward the prisoners. Because they are no longer a threat. Varg lowered his head. Understood. Meruem turned toward the captured commander. Tell your emperor something. The commander looked up. What? If they want war, they should send their strongest. The commander swallowed. And if they don't? Meruem turned away. Then they should stop sending soldiers to die. Rimuru arrived later that evening. He looked across the battlefield. Another victory. Meruem nodded. Their commander was stronger. Rimuru looked at the damaged armor. You absorbed it? Yes. Seal immediately analyzed the changes. N-Light King has incorporated the enemy's defensive energy system. Adaptive barrier generation confirmed. Rimuru stared. You can now use their defense too. Yes. Meruem looked toward the sunset. Every enemy teaches me something. Rimuru smiled. That's probably the scariest part about fighting you. Meruem said nothing. His royal guard stood behind him. Varg, Zark, and Sarah had proven themselves. They had fought independently. They had protected their people. And they had defeated an army far larger than their own. Meruem looked at them. You have fulfilled your duty. The three bowed. We serve the king. Meruem nodded. His kingdom had survived another invasion. But this battle had revealed something important. The Empire was no longer testing his strength. They were actively studying him. And if they continued adapting, the next war would be far more dangerous. The peace that followed the imperial invasion lasted only a short time. Meruem's kingdom had recovered from the damage, and the new royal guard had become fully integrated into the army. Vard commanded the ground forces. Zark oversaw the elite warriors. Sarah controlled the aerial units. Everything was organized. Then, one evening, Meruem looked toward the sky. His expression changed. Something was approaching. Not one creature. Not an army of monsters. Something else. An enormous number of Magicules signatures suddenly appeared above the forest. Meruem activated N-Light King. His perception expanded beyond the kingdom. He saw them. Figures descending from the sky. White wings. Holy energy. Weapons surrounded by radiant light. Angels. Meruem's voice was quiet. Sarah immediately flew upward. Within seconds, she returned. King, there are thousands of them. Meruem looked toward the sky. And more are coming. A massive flash appeared above the clouds. Then, boom, the sky erupted with light. Countless angelic soldiers descended toward the Jura Great Forest. The monsters below looked upward in fear. Meruem raised his hand. Everyone to your positions. The royal guard immediately moved. Vard, defend the western sector. Yes, King. Zark, protect the central settlement. Understood. Sarah, control the sky. Sarah spread her wings. I will. Meruem looked at the approaching army. Do not pursue them beyond the defensive line. His commanders nodded. Yes, King. The angels descended. A wave of holy energy swept across the forest. Trees were burned. Rocks shattered. Several weaker monsters collapsed from the pressure alone. The first angelic unit reached the defensive line. Purge the monsters. The angels charged. Vard met them head-on. Boom. His claws collided with a holy spear. The impact sent both sides backward. Vard immediately counterattacked. He struck the angel's armor. Crack. The armor broke. Another angel attacked from behind. Vard turned and blocked the spear. Too slow. He slammed the attacker into the ground. Boom. More angels surrounded him. Vard roared. Come. He charged into the formation. At the center of the kingdom, Zark led the defensive forces. Holy projectiles rained from above. Boom. One struck the ground. Zark jumped through the explosion and landed directly among the angelic soldiers. His blades moved rapidly. Clash. Crack. Several angelic weapons broke. Zark's body had become far stronger after receiving Meruem's name. But the angels were not ordinary soldiers. One of them released a powerful holy spell. Light surrounded Zark. His body was pushed backward. He dug his claws into the ground. Strong. The angel raised its weapon. Zark smiled. But not enough. He charged. Above the battlefield, Sarah led the aerial forces. Dozens of angels surrounded her. Their wings moved simultaneously. Holy arrows filled the sky. Sarah accelerated. She passed through the barrage. One arrow grazed her wing. She immediately turned. Her energy wings flashed. Boom. 3 angels were struck from the side. The remaining angels attempted to surround her. Sarah looked down. You are too predictable. She suddenly dived. The entire formation followed. Then she changed direction. The angels crashed into one another. Sarah returned to the sky. King. Her voice traveled through their shared communication network. The enemy's aerial forces are being controlled by a central commander. Meruem immediately understood. Find it. Sarah looked toward the largest concentration of holy energy. There. Meruem stood alone at the center of the battlefield. Several angels approached him. Their leader stepped forward. He carried a long golden spear. You are Meruem. Yes. You have been classified as a dangerous abnormality. Meruem looked at him. By whom? The celestial army. Then tell them something. The angel raised his spear. What? Meruem's eyes became cold. They made a mistake. The angel attacked. Meruem moved. The spear passed beside his face. He caught the shaft. The angel tried to pull it away. Meruem did not move. Holy energy. He examined the weapon. The spear radiated a power different from ordinary Magicules. Meruem activated N-Light King. The energy entered his perception. He immediately understood its structure. Interesting. The angel's expression changed. Meruem's hand tightened. Crack. The spear broke. The angel stared at the broken weapon. Meruem struck him in the chest. Boom. The angel flew backward. 3 others attacked simultaneously. Meruem moved between them. One punch. Another. Then a kick. The angels crashed into the ground. But more descended. Dozens. Then hundreds. Meruem looked upward. So many. He released his aura. The surrounding ground cracked. The angels hesitated. Meruem's presence alone disrupted their formation. Then he raised his hand. A bright sphere formed above his palm. The angels prepared their barriers. Meruem smiled. Let's see how effective your holy defenses are. The sphere disappeared. A beam of concentrated photon energy crossed the battlefield. Boom. The angelic formation shattered. Far away, Rimuru suddenly felt the disturbance. His expression became serious. Holy energy. Seal confirmed it. Massive angelic presence detected in the Jura region. Rimuru immediately stood. So they've finally moved. Benimaru grabbed his sword. We're going. Rimuru nodded. Yes. Back in Meruem's territory, the battle continued. The angels had expected monsters to collapse under their holy power. Instead, they encountered an army that had trained specifically for large-scale warfare. Vard continued holding the western line. Zark had destroyed several angelic commanders. Sarah had taken control of the sky, and Meruem stood at the center of it all. His N-Light King mapped the entire battlefield. Every movement, every attack, every formation, nothing escaped his perception. Then he sensed something far more powerful than the ordinary angels. Meruem looked toward the sky. A single figure had appeared above the clouds. The pressure alone caused the surrounding angels to stop. Meruem's eyes narrowed. So you're the real commander. The figure looked down at him. Their eyes met. The battlefield became strangely quiet. Meruem slowly raised his hand. The angels around him prepared their weapons. His royal guards moved closer. And far away, Rimuru and his forces were approaching. The angelic assault had only just begun. The battlefield had become chaotic. Angels filled the sky while Meruem's forces fought desperately to hold the defensive lines. Vard was still fighting near the western gate. Zark had pushed the enemy away from the central settlement. Sarah controlled the skies with her aerial forces. But Meruem was no longer focused on the soldiers around him. His eyes were fixed on the figure above the clouds. The presence was different from the other angels. Far stronger. Far more controlled. Meruem activated N-Light King. His perception expanded. The entire battlefield entered his awareness. Every soldier, every spell, every movement, every change in Magicule density. Nothing escaped him. Then he noticed something strange. The angelic army was not attacking randomly. Their movements formed a pattern. Meruem's eyes narrowed. They're coordinating through dimensional signals. He could not see the signals directly, but he could feel their effects. Every time one formation moved, another reacted several seconds later. It was a chain of commands. Meruem immediately understood. The army isn't being controlled from the battlefield. Sarah suddenly contacted him. King, I've detected unusual energy above the clouds. Same conclusion. Meruem looked upward. Find the source. Sarah accelerated. Whom? She disappeared into the clouds. Seconds later, her voice returned. There are several dimensional gates. Meruem's expression became serious. How many? 7. He immediately began calculating. 7 gates. 7 command points, each connected to a different group of angels. Destroying one would not stop the army. But if all 7 were disabled simultaneously, the entire formation would lose coordination. Meruem looked toward Zark. Zark. Yes, King. Take your strongest warriors and destroy the eastern gate. Understood. Varg. Yes. Destroy the western gate. Varg immediately moved. Sarah. Take the aerial units and eliminate the northern and southern gates. Yes, King. Meruem remained at the center. There were 3 gates left. He would handle them himself. The first gate appeared above a ruined section of forest. Meruem moved. The angels noticed him immediately. Stop him. Dozens charged. Meruem accelerated. Boom. He broke through the first formation. One angel attacked from the left. He dodged. Another fired a holy projectile. Meruem moved between them. His body became a blur. Within seconds, he reached the gate. A powerful barrier surrounded it. Meruem placed his hand against the surface. Light King activated. The barrier's structure appeared inside his perception. Layers of energy, dimensional connections, holy energy, Magicule compression. Meruem analyzed everything. Too complicated. He clenched his fist. The barrier cracked, then shattered. The dimensional gate collapsed. Boom. A shockwave spread through the sky. Meruem immediately moved toward the next. Far away, Rimuru entered the battlefield. Benimaru followed him. Rimuru looked upward. Meruem is destroying their command network. Seal confirmed it. Meruem has correctly identified the dimensional command structure. His analysis speed is extremely high. Rimuru smiled. That's Meruem for you. Benimaru looked toward the sky. He's doing all of that alone. Apparently, another explosion appeared in the distance. Boom. One of the gates disappeared. Rimuru's expression became serious. We should help his army. Benimaru nodded. Understood. Meruem reached the third gate. This one was heavily protected. Hundreds of angels surrounded it. Their leader stepped forward. You will not destroy this gate. Meruem looked at him. I already destroyed two. The angel's expression changed. What? Meruem vanished. The angel barely raised his weapon. Clash. Meruem's fist struck the weapon. The angel was thrown backward. Another attacked. Meruem caught its spear. Crack. The weapon broke. He kicked the angel aside. More enemies approached. Meruem released a portion of his aura. The surrounding angels froze. Then he moved. One after another, they fell. Not dead. Simply unable to continue. Meruem reached the gate. His hand touched the dimensional barrier. This time, he did not destroy it immediately. He analyzed the structure more deeply. Then he noticed something. The gate was connected to another dimension. But the connection was not stable. It was being maintained by an external source. Meruem's eyes narrowed. So that's how they are sending reinforcements. He changed his approach. Instead of destroying the gate, he altered its energy flow. The dimensional connection began collapsing. The gate distorted. Then, boom, it disappeared. Meruem turned toward the sky. 4 gates remained. Then 3. Then 2. Finally, boom. The last gate vanished. The angelic army suddenly stopped. Their coordinated attacks broke apart. Some units continued fighting. Others received no orders. Their formations collapsed. Meruem looked across the battlefield. Now, his voice reached every commander through Light King. Varg immediately understood. Advance. Zark shouted. Push them back. Sarah's aerial forces descended. The monster army surged forward. The angels tried to reorganize. But it was too late. Without the dimensional command network, their movements became predictable. Meruem could now read every formation. He transmitted enemy positions to his commanders. Varg, 30 enemies approaching your eastern flank. Varg turned. Understood. Zark, heavy unit behind the ridge. Zark immediately changed direction. Sarah, 3 aerial formations above you. Sarah looked upward. Found them. The royal guard moved perfectly. The entire army began operating like a single organism. Rimuru watched from the ground. He's using his perception to coordinate everyone. Seal analyzed the phenomenon. Meruem is effectively functioning as a battlefield-wide command center. Rimuru smiled. That's terrifying. Then Meruem sensed something else. The powerful figure above the clouds had finally moved. The angel descended. The pressure became immense. Every monster on the battlefield felt it. Meruem looked upward. The angel stopped several hundred meters above him. You have disrupted the celestial army. Meruem remained calm. Yes. You have no idea what you have interfered with. Then explain. The angel raised its weapon. Holy energy gathered. Meruem's perception immediately expanded around it. He analyzed the weapon, the energy, the movement, the trajectory. In the next attack, his eyes narrowed. "You're stronger." The angel smiled. "Now you understand." Meruem lowered his stance. "But you're still predictable." The angel disappeared. Meruem vanished at the same time. Boom! The two collided high above the battlefield. The shockwave spread across the sky. Rimuru looked upward. "It's starting." Meruem and the angel separated. Both remained unharmed. Meruem's eyes sharpened. He had finally found an opponent whose movements could not be understood from a single exchange. And for the first time since arriving in this world, Meruem had to push Light King beyond its previous limits. The two figures collided above the forest. Boom! The shockwave spread through the clouds. Meruem and the angel separated before either could follow up. Meruem landed on the surface of a broken stone formation. The angel remained suspended in the air. Neither had suffered a serious injury. Meruem narrowed his eyes. The opponent was different from every enemy he had faced before. Its movements were precise. There was almost no wasted motion. More importantly, the angel changed its attack pattern every time Meruem adapted. Meruem smiled slightly. "Interesting." The angel raised its weapon. "You are still underestimating me." "No." Meruem lowered his stance. "I am studying you." The angel disappeared. Meruem's eyes moved. There. A faint distortion appeared behind him. He turned. Clash. The angel's weapon struck his forearm. Meruem blocked the attack. Another strike immediately followed. Then another. Clash. 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 Meruem moved backward through the air. The angel continued attacking. Each strike came from a different angle. Meruem blocked the first, dodged the second, redirected the third, then countered. Boom! His fist struck the angel's chest. The angel was thrown several meters backward. But it immediately stabilized itself. Meruem looked at its movements. "You changed your rhythm." The angel said nothing. It attacked again. Meruem avoided the weapon by a few centimeters. Then another attack came from below. He jumped. A third attack followed from above. He twisted his body and avoided it. The angel suddenly changed direction. Meruem's eyes sharpened. He had seen the pattern. The next attack would come from the left. He moved before the angel attacked. His fist struck empty air. Nothing was there. Meruem's expression changed. The angel had intentionally changed its pattern. The weapon struck his side. Boom! Meruem was thrown through the clouds. He stopped himself before hitting the ground. For the first time, blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. He wiped it away. "So that's your method." The angel descended. "What? You deliberately create patterns." The angel's expression remained neutral. "You observe them, predict the next move, and prepare for the counter." Meruem stood straight. "Then you break your own pattern." The angel remained silent. Meruem smiled. An intelligent opponent. On the ground, Rimuru looked upward. Meruem was hit. Benimaru tightened his grip on his sword. "Should we help him?" Rimuru shook his head. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because Meruem is learning." Seal confirmed it. Meruem's combat analysis has increased significantly. Current opponent is being evaluated through predictive modeling. Rimuru looked at the sky. He's treating the fight like a game of gunji. Meruem closed his eyes. His perception expanded. Light King. The entire battlefield became visible. But this time, he ignored the obvious information. He focused on the smallest details. The angel's breathing, the movement of its wings, the fluctuation of holy energy, the timing between attacks, the position of its weapon, the distance between each movement. Then he began calculating. One possibility, another. Thousands of potential sequences appeared within his mind. Meruem opened his eyes. "I see it." The angel attacked. Meruem did not move. The weapon approached his head. At the final moment, he shifted slightly. The attack missed. Meruem stepped forward. The angel attempted a second strike. He avoided it. Third. He avoided it. Fourth. He blocked it. Fifth. He caught the weapon. The angel's eyes widened. Meruem had predicted every movement. Your options are limited. He twisted the weapon. Crack. The angel's weapon fractured. Meruem struck its abdomen. Boom. The angel was launched through several clouds. The angel recovered. Its expression had finally changed. Meruem had adapted. Not through greater speed. Not through greater strength. Through prediction. The angel raised its hand. Holy energy gathered around its body. Dozens of weapons appeared in the air. Meruem looked at them. Another strategy. The weapons fired simultaneously. A rain of holy projectiles descended. Meruem moved. He did not simply dodge. He calculated the trajectory of every projectile. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. He passed between them. One projectile grazed his shoulder. Another passed behind his head. A third struck the ground beneath him. Boom. Meruem emerged from the explosion. The angel suddenly appeared directly in front of him. Meruem expected the attack, but the angel did not strike. Instead, it released a concentrated burst of holy energy. Boom. Meruem crossed his arms. The blast pushed him backward. His feet touched the ground. The forest behind him was destroyed. Meruem looked at the angel. You used the environment. The angel attacked again. Meruem blocked. This time, he was ready. Clash. He caught the weapon. His other hand grabbed the angel's wrist. Caught. The angel tried to escape. Meruem tightened his grip. The angel's armor began cracking. Crack. Meruem released Light King. His perception entered the angel's energy network. He immediately detected the source of its strength. Your holy energy is concentrated here. The angel's eyes widened. Meruem placed his palm against its chest. A flash of light erupted. Boom. The angel was thrown across the battlefield. It crashed into a mountain. The mountain shook. Dust filled the air. Meruem remained standing. His body was covered in several shallow wounds. But his expression remained calm. The angel emerged from the rubble. Its armor was damaged. One wing was partially broken. But it was still standing. You predicted my attacks. Yes. How many? Meruem looked at it. Enough. The angel raised its remaining weapon. Then predict this. Its energy suddenly changed. The surrounding space distorted. Meruem's eyes widened. This was not a physical attack. The angel's next movement would bypass his normal perception. Meruem immediately recalculated. Hundreds of possibilities appeared, then thousands. He eliminated them one by one. The angel disappeared. Meruem turned. Nothing. Behind him. Nothing. Above. Nothing. Below. Nothing. Then he understood. Dimensional displacement. The attack emerged from outside his immediate perception. Meruem moved. Too late. The weapon struck his back. Boom. He crashed into the ground. A massive crater formed. Rimuru immediately stepped forward. Meruem. Dust covered the area. Then a figure rose from the crater. Meruem stood. Blood flowed from his back. He looked at the angel. His expression had become completely serious. You can hide your movement outside normal space. The angel smiled. Yes. Meruem wiped the blood from his mouth. Then I'll expand my perception. Light King activated at full power. His aura exploded outward. The surrounding space trembled. His perception expanded beyond the battlefield. Beyond the forest. Beyond the mountains. The dimensional distortions became visible. Meruem could now sense the space between spaces. The angel's movements appeared again. This time, there was nowhere to hide. Meruem smiled. Found you. He disappeared. The angel's expression changed. Meruem appeared directly beside it. Clash. Their attacks collided. Meruem followed with another strike. The angel blocked. Another. Blocked. Another. Blocked. Meruem changed direction. The angel reacted. Meruem changed again. The angel reacted. Then Meruem stopped. The angel attacked. Meruem moved inside its guard. His fist struck the center of its chest. Boom. The angel fell from the sky. Meruem descended slowly. The battlefield had become quiet. The angel remained on the ground. It was still alive. Meruem stood several meters away. You are defeated. The angel looked at him. Why didn't you kill me? Because you surrendered. The angel was silent. Meruem turned away. Take the wounded and leave. The angel looked at his back. You fight like a monster. Meruem stopped. I am a monster. He glanced over his shoulder. But that doesn't mean I need to behave like an animal. Rimuru arrived beside him. He looked at Meruem's wounds. You okay? Yes. Rimuru smiled. You really pushed yourself. Meruem looked toward the sky. It was necessary. Seal delivered its final analysis. Predictive combat model completed. Enemy attack patterns successfully analyzed. Dimensional perception expanded. Light King has exceeded previous perception limitations. Meruem closed his eyes. The battle had taught him something important. Raw strength was not enough. Speed was not enough. Even overwhelming perception had limits. But with enough information, enough calculation, and enough time, those limits could be broken. Meruem turned toward his army. The angelic assault had failed. But the war was far from over. And somewhere beyond the battlefield, the true mastermind behind the invasion was beginning to take notice of the Chimera King. The angelic army had begun retreating. Their formations were broken, their dimensional gates were gone, and their strongest warrior had been defeated by Meruem. But Meruem did not order his army to celebrate. He stood at the edge of the battlefield, staring toward the sky. Something was still there. A massive concentration of energy remained beyond the clouds. They haven't withdrawn completely. Rimuru stood beside him. You sensed it too. Meruem nodded. There is another force approaching. Seal immediately confirmed his perception. Abnormal energy signature detected. Multiple dimensional distortions approaching the Jura region. Rimuru's expression became serious. More angels? Not exactly. Meruem looked upward. Something larger. The clouds suddenly turned white. Then the sky split open. Crack. A massive dimensional rift appeared above the forest. From inside came thousands of angelic soldiers. Behind them floated enormous magical vessels covered in golden armor. The remaining angelic army regrouped around them. Rimuru looked up. That's their main fleet. Meruem's eyes narrowed. The vessels began charging their weapons. Sarah immediately descended from the sky. King, the fleet is preparing a large-scale attack. How long? Less than 1 minute. Meruem looked at the battlefield. His army was exhausted. Varg was wounded. Zark had several broken pieces of armor. Sarah's wings were damaged. Even the ordinary soldiers were struggling to remain standing. Another attack of that scale could destroy the entire territory. Meruem looked toward Rimuru. Evacuate the wounded. Rimuru nodded. And you? Meruem looked at the sky. I will stop them. The angelic fleet opened fire. Whom? Dozens of enormous beams descended from the sky. Meruem stepped forward. Light King activated. His perception expanded across the entire battlefield. He calculated the trajectory of every beam. Then he raised both hands. A massive sphere of concentrated photon energy formed above him. The surrounding air trembled. Rimuru looked at the energy. That's much bigger than your previous attacks. Meruem continued concentrating power. It needs to be. The first beam approached. Meruem moved. His body transformed into a streak of light. Whom? He passed through the battlefield. The first beam missed. Then another. And another. Meruem moved between the attacks at incredible speed. The angelic fleet attempted to track him. They failed. Target lost. Search again. Where is he? A voice suddenly came from above. Here. Meruem appeared directly above the largest vessel. His fist struck its outer armor. Boom. The armor cracked. The vessel shook violently. Meruem placed his palm against the damaged surface. Synthesis activated. The energy from the vessel flowed into his body. High-density celestial energy detected. Synthesis initiated. The vessel's power began dropping. Stop him. Hundreds of angels flew toward Meruem. He ignored them. The energy continued pouring into his body. His aura became brighter. Then his body began emitting both golden light and dark energy. The two forces intertwined around him. Rimuru watched from below. He's absorbing the entire vessel. Seal confirmed it. Energy absorption rate increasing. Photon synthesis approaching maximum output. Meruem finally released the vessel. The enormous structure became completely inactive. It began falling. Sarah immediately flew beneath it and redirected its descent away from the settlement. Meruem turned toward the remaining fleet. There were still dozens. His eyes became cold. 1. He raised his hand. A concentrated beam of light formed. 2. Another. 3. Another. Dozens of spheres appeared around him. The angels froze. Meruem pointed toward the fleet. Photon synthesis. The spheres fired simultaneously. Boom, boom, boom. The sky became filled with explosions. Angelic vessels were pierced one after another. Their barriers collapsed. Their armor shattered. Some attempted to escape through dimensional gates. Meruem's perception detected every opening. He fired again. Boom. The remaining vessels disappeared into brilliant flashes of light. The battlefield fell silent. The angelic army had been destroyed. Only a few survivors remained. Meruem descended toward the ground. His body was glowing intensely. The energy he had absorbed continued circulating through him. Then the N-Light King activated automatically. Energy capacity exceeded previous limit. Foreign energy successfully synthesized. Photon output greatly increased. New attack configuration available. Meruem raised his hand. The surrounding Magicules began gathering. Light compressed into his palm. Then dark energy wrapped around it. The two energies merged into a single sphere. Rimuru stared. Meruem looked at the sphere. This is the result of everything I've absorbed. The sphere grew larger. The ground beneath his feet cracked. Crack. Meruem pointed toward the remaining enemy forces. Rage blast. The sphere launched forward. Whom? It crossed the battlefield in an instant. The remaining angelic forces attempted to create barriers. 1, 2, 10, dozens. The attack passed through all of them. Boom. A massive explosion erupted beyond the forest. The sky shook. The remaining angelic forces disappeared inside the blast. When the light faded, nothing remained. The battlefield became completely silent. Varg approached slowly. King. Meruem turned. Report. The enemy has been completely defeated. Zark arrived beside him. Their main fleet is gone. Sarah landed behind them. There are no remaining hostile forces in the sky. Meruem nodded. Good. Rimuru walked toward him. That attack was ridiculous. Meruem looked at him. It was necessary. Rimuru laughed. You really have only one answer to everything. Meruem glanced at him. No. He looked toward the destroyed battlefield. I have several. Rimuru smiled. Right. Seal continued analyzing the newly acquired power. Rage blast. Photon synthesis successfully established. Destructive output exceeds previous photon attacks by a significant margin. Synthesis of absorbed energy has reached a stable state. Meruem looked at his hand. The light had disappeared. His body had returned to normal. But he could still feel the new power within him. He had absorbed magical machinery, celestial energy, holy power, photon energy, and the abilities of countless enemies. All of them had become part of his strength. Meruem looked toward the sky. They will not attack this territory again. Rimuru nodded. Not after seeing that. Meruem turned toward his people. Repair the walls. Varg immediately bowed. Yes, King. Treat the wounded. Yes. And capture any surviving enemies. Zark nodded. Understood. Sarah looked toward the distant sky. What about the next attack? Meruem remained silent for a moment. Then he answered calmly. There won't be one. His eyes shifted toward the horizon. Because the ones who sent them now know what happened. Far beyond the Jura Great Forest, the final remnants of the angelic army carried the news. The Chimera King had defeated their army. He had destroyed their fleet. And he had created a weapon capable of consuming everything they used against him. The war had changed. Meruem was no longer merely defending his kingdom. He had become the greatest threat the enemy needed to eliminate. The battlefield had finally become quiet. The last traces of the angelic army had disappeared beyond the horizon. Broken weapons covered the ground. Damaged magical machines lay scattered across the plains. The forest had suffered heavy damage, but the settlement remained standing. Meruem stood at the center of the ruined battlefield. His royal guard gathered behind him. Varg had several wounds across his armor. Zark's blades were damaged. Sarah's wings were still recovering. Yet all three remained standing. Meruem looked at them. You fought well. Varg lowered his head. We only followed your orders. And you executed them correctly. Zark smiled. Then the enemy was simply too weak. Meruem looked at him. Do not underestimate future enemies. Zark immediately became serious. Understood. Sarah looked toward the sky. Will they return? Meruem was silent for several seconds. Then he shook his head. Not soon. Rimuru arrived shortly afterward. This time, he came without an army. He walked through the battlefield and examined the destruction. You really did a number on this place. Meruem looked at him. The settlement survived. That's what matters. Rimuru looked toward the horizon. The angels won't be able to launch another attack here for a while. Meruem nodded. Good. Rimuru smiled. Then it's time to rebuild. The reconstruction began immediately. Monsters repaired the damaged walls. Others cleared the battlefield. The injured were brought into temporary medical shelters. Meruem personally inspected every section of the settlement. He did not leave the work entirely to his commanders. He checked the food supplies, the defensive structures, the patrol routes, the number of wounded, and the condition of the royal guard. Everything was recorded. Everything was reorganized. Within several days, the settlement had begun returning to normal. The monsters gradually returned to their daily activities. Children played near the newly repaired buildings. Meruem watched them from a distance. One of his commanders approached. King. Meruem turned. What is it? The people are celebrating. Meruem looked toward the center of the settlement. There was food, music, and several monsters gathered together. Why? The commander looked confused. Because we survived. Meruem remained silent. Then he nodded. Let them celebrate. Several days later, Rimuru returned to Tempest. Meruem accompanied him. The city was as lively as ever. When they entered the central building, several familiar figures were waiting. Benimaru, Souei, Shuna, and others. Benimaru looked at Meruem. Your army has changed. Meruem nodded. They have improved. Especially your royal guard. Varg, Zark, and Sarah stood behind Meruem. Benimaru smiled. Perhaps we should arrange another training session. Zark immediately stepped forward. I accept. Benimaru laughed. You haven't changed. Rimuru sighed. Don't destroy my city. Both warriors stopped. Understood. Later that evening, Meruem stood outside Tempest. The city lights illuminated the streets. He could hear people laughing. Merchants talking. Children running. Soldiers patrolling. It reminded him of something he had once lost. A quiet life. A simple connection. A person who had taught him that strength was not the only thing worth protecting. Kamugi. Meruem looked toward the sky. He still remembered her voice. Her movements. The games they had played. The final moments they had shared. But this time, he did not allow the memory to consume him. He simply accepted it. Then he looked back toward Tempest. This world had given him another opportunity. He had been reborn as a monster. He had become a king again. But this kingdom was different. It did not need to conquer the world. It needed to survive and grow. Rimuru approached from behind. Thinking about the past, Meruem looked at him. Yes, Rimuru did not ask for details. Instead, he stood beside him. You've changed since we first met. Meruem looked at his hands. Perhaps. You were already intelligent. Rimuru smiled. But now you're thinking about more than just winning. Meruem looked toward the city. Power is useful. He paused. But power without control destroys what it is supposed to protect. Rimuru nodded. That's something I can agree with. For a moment, they remained silent. Then Rimuru stretched. So, what are you going to do now? Meruem looked toward the distant horizon. Build, my kingdom. Rimuru smiled. And after that, Meruem's eyes sharpened. Learn. Months passed. Meruem's territory continued developing. Trade with Tempest increased. His royal guard became stronger. New settlements appeared around the main city. Monsters from distant regions began joining his kingdom. Some came because they feared stronger monsters. Others came because they wanted protection. Meruem accepted them under one condition. They followed the laws of the kingdom. The population grew. The military became more organized. And the relationship between Meruem and Tempest became stronger. Eventually, Meruem's kingdom was recognized by the surrounding nations. The name of the Chimera King spread across the continent. Some called him a monster. Others called him a demon lord. Many called him a conqueror. But those who lived under his rule knew him differently. He was their king. One afternoon, Meruem stood before his people. Thousands of monsters gathered in front of him. Varg, Zark, and Sarah stood at his side. Rimuru was also present. Meruem looked across the crowd. This kingdom was created because monsters needed a place where they could live without constantly fearing destruction. The crowd remained silent. That does not mean we will never fight. His eyes moved toward the distant mountains. There will always be enemies. He looked back at his people. But we will decide when to fight. The monsters raised their weapons. Meruem continued, "We will not attack the weak for pleasure. We will not destroy what we cannot control. And we will not surrender simply because an enemy is stronger." The crowd erupted. "Long live King Meruem! Long live the Chimera King!" Meruem raised one hand. The cheering gradually stopped. His expression remained calm. Then continue building. The monsters began working again. That evening, Meruem returned to the highest tower in his kingdom. The sun was setting. He activated Light King. His perception spread across the land. He could sense every village, every patrol, every soldier, every living creature within his territory. Nothing appeared threatening. For the first time since his reincarnation, Meruem could look across his kingdom without seeing an immediate battlefield. He closed his eyes, then opened them again. The king who had once ruled the Chimera Ants had been given another life. This time, he would not rule through fear. He would rule through strength, discipline, and judgment. And if something threatened his people again, the entire world would remember the name of the king who had learned to turn every enemy's strength into his own. Meruem looked toward the stars. This world is mine to protect. Behind him, the lights of his kingdom continued to shine. And the Chimera King remained on his throne, watching over them.
Alright, now that we've gone through the entire story, let's move on to the key educational lessons and takeaways hidden within it. True leadership protects, not oppresses. Meruem's journey in Tensura shows us that true strength isn't defined by raw power or the ability to dominate others, but by empathy, wisdom, and emotional growth. Even with ultimate power, a real leader chooses to build harmony, protect the vulnerable, and lead with justice rather than fear. Maybe that's all for today's video. Like if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment if you have any title suggestions for the next video. Alright, that's it, and see you in the next video. Bye.